beer. Ponytails podcast. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Andre Scambo here, episode 107 of the Ponytails podcast. Cheers to that. Speaking of cheers, our beer is launching this weekend. Let's go. That's good stuff. Guys, if this is your first episode listening, if this is the first time you've discovered the Ponytails, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy it. If you don't know what the heck Ponytails means or why this is even a thing, if you just stumbled upon it, this is the podcast that interviews people who sold books door to door during their summer internship in college with Southwestern Advantage. It's a crazy internship. It's a variety of emotions. It's a variety of details that we share on the show, and it's super fun. A lot of the people that we talked to went on and did some pretty cool things. Actually, pretty much all of them. So it's kind of been a fun journey so far. We've been around for a year and a half, and now we're excited to bring you guys our guest today, Naomi James. So we'll bring her up in a second, but a couple of announcements before we get into that and a couple of shout outs. First of all, I want to say BIZZLER. BIZZLER's coming up here on August 15th through the 19th. If you don't know what that is, it is going to be an alumni party that we are throwing in Cancun at a 5-star resort, and it's $1,500 a person. The deadline to sign up for that, or at least to get registered, is coming up on May 1st. If you want more details, there's going to be a link in the notes of the episode. If you're listening to the audio on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, if you're on YouTube, it's going to be in the description of the episode below. Just click on the form, fill it out. We'll send that information over to our booking person, and then they will send you some pricing and some payment plan options that you can take for the BIZZLER trip. But we are getting ready for that with Elevate Wellness. And it was leg day yesterday for me. I am heavily sore. Thank you, Seth, for that. And I'm super excited to be working with these guys. They're getting me into some shape. Hopefully you guys can see it, but I can feel it, and my wife's happy about it. And so that's the biggest thing. But if you guys are in the mood to get into that sizzler bod, into that summer bod, especially now, it's a good time to start getting into it. They got different week programs you guys get involved with, but it's not just working out. It's a lot of your nutritional part. It's a lot of the mental part of staying in shape. It's a really healthy way to stay consistent with it. It's easy to not fail. It's easy to continue to be good at it and to maintain in that shape. So I definitely recommend that. Please reach out to us if you guys want to be able to get into the best shape of your life, elevate your health, elevate your life. So we're working with them for sure. Now, Will Metscher is also one of our partners, and Will helps people suck less. So he's working with consulting. And one of the best things about working with Will, besides the fact that he's a really good friend of mine, is the ability to stay accountable. One of the things that's really hard about after you leave the summer is there's like no people holding you accountable for anything anymore. There's like no PCs. But Will is the kind of person that helps you do that. And he's actually currently looking for more people to be coaches who can coach and help hold other people accountable, kind of help them with their sales, help them with their life, help them improve and balance the work-life balance that is kind of hard to do today. So reach out to us if you're looking to change careers, maybe switch plans and do something new with your life. That is Will with Southwestern Consulting. He is awesome to work with. Couldn't recommend it any higher. But now it's time to bring on our guest. Boom! All right, guys, I'm excited for this. She is with us live all the way from Gainesville, well, just outside of Gainesville. And man, 3-summer book girl, book chick, book woman, badass. And I'm super excited. I just met her, talked on the phone with her for like 15 minutes yesterday, but just the vibe already, I'm like, oh, this is going to be an exciting episode. So I'm really, really excited. It's Naomi Langley, as you might have known her when you were selling books. She's Naomi James now. She got married. She got hitched. It's in style. I did it earlier this year. And, you should do it too if you want to. But more on that later. Now it's time to bring her in. Naomi, thank you for joining us.
Hi. Woo. I'm good. Yeah, it's wild to think it's been 10 years, like 10 years since I last sold. Like, whoa, what have I done with my life?
It's weird to look back on it, right? Like at this point in time last year, you were like trying to memorize the sales talk. Or 10 years ago, I should say, not last year. 10 years ago, you're right. Like, okay, what everyone likes about the way I do business.
Right, I'm still trying to get back in. Just kidding.
Epic. So, all right, let's dive into this whole thing, man. I'm so excited. I love what I'm doing for work. This is my job, and it's so fun to get to catch up with people. What are you up to nowadays? It's been 10 years. Where are you at? What's going on in your life? What are you doing to pass the days? Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah. I freelance now doing project management, operations management, and event management. Um, and I also on the side do wedding planning and wedding day of coordination and officiating. Um, and I'm also a stand-up comedian and a freestyle rap artist. I've got my hip hop shows, MC Gnomes, spectacular vernacular hip hop shows, where I highlight different lyricists on top of different music producers' beats once a month in the area. So that's super fun. It's like new music, new words every time. I I stay super busy. Um, Habitual hyper productivity.
Hold on. That was so many cool things, but I gotta point one out. You do stand up?
Yeah.
I do
I'm
stand up.
hilarious, can't you tell?
You are hilarious. I do stand up too. That is so fun.
Yes,
My
air
gosh.
five. Woo.
Hell yeah. How did you get into that? Tell me this story. That's so fun. This is so fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, so with stand up, we have a really large like comedy scene in Gainesville that's very inclusive, which is good and bad. Having an
Yeah.
inclusive comedy scene.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, we just workshop and we have open mics, and then the people that are really good at open mics move forward and eventually hit like Atlanta, Miami circuit, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just telling stories with a lot of stage presence, but like boiling it down to like the zingers. So that's what I'm good at.
Don't say in 7 words what you can say in 4 is the idea, right?
Yeah.
Brevity is the soul of wit. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get into it? How long have you been doing this?
I don't know. I've been funny my whole life, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I just started doing stand up maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. So
Hell yeah,
yeah.
me too.
I love that there's like more opportunity for women in these like stage spaces, especially like with hip hop, kind of had to carve that out. I was the first female in Flim, pack of hip loving MCs getting money. I actually made the acronym.
No way.
Yeah, that's at UF. So I guess I've been in that like performative role for longer than stand up. But you can't always be freestyling. So
Right.
yeah.
Dang. It is. If you at some point might have to, especially as
Drop
I
me a
get more
beat.
as I get more
Bet I
into these.
won't.
Bet I won't. I will drop you a beat. Shit. Do we have a beat from on stream? Yeah, we probably do. We'll drop something. I'll be like,
Right. We'll get
no,
there.
hang on, hold on. I'm curious. So with comedy, like where you, because I understand you always think you're funny, right? But there's a lot of people out there who think they're funny. I would definitely love to talk to you about this. Like, how did you decide and take up the courage to just go do it? Because it's a scary thing to get up there for the first time.
Yeah, no.
Like, walk me through your first open mic.
Yeah, so I just do it as a side gig. Again, like I've had a few paid shows, but not like definitely not moving towards a career with that. Just I enjoy it very much, like being in a performative space. And like from the very first time that I like did an open mic, like I was like standing ovation, hilarious, and I'm like, oh, okay, like this is easy, just be funny. And do a lot of like crowd interaction, especially like heckle back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Like that's what everybody likes to see is like you trashing someone on stage, like trashing back.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I just enjoy it.
I love that. And then okay, so then you do the event planning and the wedding planning. Like it's like you're like a jack of all trades.
Yeah, so just prior to COVID, I was an international conference organizer, and I organized like up to 4,000 person events that were technical conferences. So like doctors and researchers and scientists that were coming together to like share their niche field and like their research. So I would organize those events like all across the world, Nara, Japan, and Montreal, DC, Kuala Lumpur, and then COVID happened and it was like shut down all the international borders immediately. And so it was like, okay, you've had a taste of your dream job, now pivot. Because like the big thing about those conferences was like, these nerds are working like year round, like elbows deep in the science lab to like, further their fields. And then they have 1 week out of the year where they can come around with all the other nerds that know about their very specific like biosensors and,
Yeah.
and so like the element of switching that to online, just it didn't really like translate, so there wasn't that catharsis of meeting in person. And so, so from there, I was the operations manager for like the world's largest white label digital marketing company. And I did that up until about a month ago. I loved it. I loved the team, all my VAs and everyone like here and everything, but I just didn't have the work-life balance that I needed to move into motherhood, because I'm 5 months pregnant. Yeah. And so, and I really advocated for myself in that role. Like, this is what I need to make it both work. And it didn't happen. So, bye. So yeah. And I've had so much work freelancing that like I haven't missed anything yet. So, and it's also fun, like just being able to like wake up in the morning and like purposefully pick what I want to do that day, like where I want to put my mini skill sets and energies, and just monetizing what I enjoy doing. So.
Wow, that's so cool, man. I'm so proud of you. It's just such a cool thing to see after like when people go and start living their dream that way and start like prioritizing their time and their life, well. Like it's a cool thing to see from that standpoint. So do you think that like the things that you learned while you were selling books that helped you, or like how did like the things you learned from Southwestern kind of help you in like your role in that
Yeah. So one of the hardest things is, oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
One of the hardest things was like learning to structure my time with discipline when like I'm only working for me, right? So I'm not doing cold showers or anything like that, but it's like that accountability is really important, and that's a learned trait. It takes 21 days to make a habit. um, yeah, so there's that, just like digging deep and so goal setting, breaking down those goals into like bite-sized chunks, that's all really important. Keeping expenses low, until everything is kicked off, that's always been huge. And networking like a fool, I drop names, like names on names on names still. And also Southwestern got me my first like big girl job right out of college. I used to manage the advertising at 3 airports: Gainesville, Pensacola, and Albany, Georgia. So for 5 years, I was just selling airport advertising, like the banners and the like digital TV monitors and the bus wraps, and I put a car in the airport, like stuff like that. And the reason why they hired me was because Southwestern was like at the top of my resume, and the owner of that company was taking Southwestern, like, what is it, mentoring or accounts consulting, Southwestern Consulting. Yeah. And so she was like, oh, this girl. So and again, so I've been in these spaces where I'm not under like direct management. There's a lot of self management, self accountability, getting the job done or beyond performing beyond expectation. That takes a lot of personal accountability, acuity, agency, custody, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's a thing that, it doesn't happen for everyone where the resume, helps them out in that way, but that's lucky that, for you, it worked out that way because there is something to be shown for that work, right? Like and we'll talk about the imperfections of what that experience was, but at the same time, there's also some positives. So you're like, hey, if I can draw on this and I busted my ass to earn it, might as well just do it because it makes sense to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a, right. It's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. Then I have a question then. So if I see a car at the airport, what does it take to like, how do you even get to put, like, how do I put a pony at an airport if I wanted to?
The hardest part is getting the double door maintenance to remove the double doors so you can drive it in.
Holy shit, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we've put boats in, we've put ATVs, we've put cars in the airport. It's just a contractual agreement between the media company and the management of the airport. So there's typically 5 to 10 year, contracts and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Damn. And now you went from that to now you marry people, and you get to help people get
Yeah, yeah,
hitched.
I love officiating because, even though marriage is a, kind of conservative, tradition, a lot of people don't want to get married in a conservative way anymore. It's not like great Uncle Greg is gonna stand up and say whatever he wants to say on my freaking biggest day of my life. It's like a lot of brides, especially, want to have it facilitate like what their dream is, and then there's two different families, so you might need to mix in a couple Bible verses, or be respectful of the cultures that are being combined. So it's a very nuanced thing to be able to and to facilitate that in a way that still has surprises for both. You really want to get to know the bride and groom and what their wishes are, and the core of their relationship, and then how long they want it to be. Who should be included and highlighted. Explaining the process of the walk down and the cueing the music and all of that. So basically, my officiant services, like shameless plug, is really just
No, this is
doing it in a modern way that is done the way you want it. Unless you say some crazy shit, and then it's like, no.
well, a couple of things. We are sponsored by, and I can recommend them because they did my wedding. We are sponsored by Martine and Lukasz, and they're DJs, and they're book guys are DJs, and they're cost effective and they're cost efficient because they understand the value of helping people make their day as good as possible. So I will refer them to you and connect you with them, because I'm sure you probably need DJs all the time, or like
Yeah, do they travel? Is that how it works? Or
yeah. They live in Utah, but they
ooh,
came all the way to Portland, and they travel lightly, so it was pretty cheap to get them out here. And especially if you ever like officiate book people weddings, which they happen quite often, then they do a discount for those people as well. Anyway, so heads up on that. I'll get you connected
yeah,
with them for
yeah,
sure.
to that
Yeah.
connectaroo.
Yeah, that's the whole the point of this whole show, is to bring the network to life. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Now I have a question for you. Have you do you know this might be I always wonder, like as an officiant, you see so many weddings. Do you ever go, "Oh, this one's not going to make it. This one's going to be,
Oh,
this one's going to suffer"? Or do you, on the other hand, you're like, "Wow, these guys are going to go all the way. Like they're
that's
gonna be 80."
that's the that's the hardest part about it, is like, with sales, you're a much better salesman when you're convicted in your product, like when this is gonna work. There are definitely scenarios where like it becomes painfully obvious that but like, hey, it's what they want to do, and maybe they'll work it out. um but yeah, the shortest one was 4 months. They'd been together for 10 years, got married, did 4 months. So
Wow. How? That's
yeah,
amazing. That's
that's a
amazing, man.
story for another time.
Oh yeah, that's exactly how to use that phrase. Good job. Good stuff. I always wondered about that, like officiants. It's like, man, you're just in there. All right. Do you? No, you don't. But sure. Do you? Do you take this person or not? That's hilarious. Damn, dude, that's so cool. And what's the goal then with this business, with this idea? Do you want to keep doing this on your own, or is this like something that you want to expand and have like a whole big old company and marry people all over Florida, or what's the goal?
Oh no, I just like, if the timing is right for me, like when the date is, and I vibe with the people and the price is right, then I do it. So it's a very fluid like business thing. I don't have an LLC or anything. I just do it. It's like wild. You can get officiated like online for like $5.
No
So
way. Like to
yeah,
become an
Universal
officiant?
Life Church, ULC. So like I'm Minister Naomi James.
I'm
So
gonna put that on the description of the episode. I'll be like,
mhm.
episode 107, Minister Naomi James.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. We
exactly
should
it.
go after them for some money. Call that an ad.
That's awesome, man. All right, well, let's wind the clocks back there to talk a little bit about your history with how you got into this whole internship, and the bulk of what typically ends up being our episodes is your experience, good and bad, of selling books. But
Yes,
a little
book
bit of that.
selling.
Yeah, that's right. Book time. So as we get into book time, we'll talk a little bit about some of our partners. And I always love talking about this one. We love working with. You remember Pat Roach? Did he ever do like a keynote address for you at your sales schools?
The name sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay, so Pat's a legend. He's the one that created Southwestern Real Estate. And for people that are listening, we're not affiliated with Southwestern, but some of their sister companies, the people that work for them, they like us, and so they were like, "I want to support," which is a good move from them. But yeah, Pat created the company. If you guys are looking for something to do, real estate is hot right now to get into, and it probably will be for a while. So the best way to do it is in a company that's the culture is easy to get into. So if you guys are looking for something to do that is a bit of a career change, and maybe to get into something where you can feel kind of like the good parts of the Kool-Aid, that's the place you want to go to. Reach out to us, and we'll get you in touch with Pat. So that way you guys can be able to get into real estate without the concern of the turnover rate, which is extremely high, and other places. And then we're also brought to you by Martine and Lukasz. These are the DJs I was telling you about. April Naomi. I always want to say April James because the choreographer for my show choir was April James, and so I see James and I'm like, I want to call you April. I've called you April in my head like 4 times. But these are the guys that we'll put you in touch with. Super flexible, and about like when you meet a book person, you're kind of like, all right, there's like some rapport right there. You know what I'm talking about? It's kind of like that with them. So immediately, I had actually never met Martine or Lukasz, but I got referred. And of course, when we started working with them and partnering, I'm like, dude, I'm getting married. You guys want to just come do my wedding? And I paid them. It was super professional, super punctual, and the vibes are good. You got to have a good vibe. You've probably officiated and been to a wedding and planned a wedding where it was like the DJ kind of like,
right.
Yeah. So
you can only do the electric slide so many times.
Or they change the song every 5 seconds. Like you're like, this is a hit, and then okay, like that. You avoid that wave and just ride out the party with Martine and Lukasz. They also did the Freddies they were the first DJs to ever do the Freddies.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, they brought the party, so they're fire. Reach out to us if you want to book them. If you have an event coming up, can't go any better than Martine and Lukasz. So hell yeah. And then lastly, Cardinal Senior Benefits, and these guys are with Greta. Greta just got done selling books a few summers ago, but she's a badass. She's like, when you think of a badass book chick, that's Greta. And she started working with Cardinal Insurance way before, like right as the pandemic was kind of going on. But one of the things that I love about Greta is when she got there, she broke the company record like twice, and then everybody else started performing like her. So she literally changed the culture of the company. So these guys are doing a great job of helping people get their finances in order. And so if you guys are looking to do another career switch and you want to do, maybe Southwestern real estate wasn't for you, but you're thinking, man, insurance is a good game to get into. The money's good, and we want a good culture. That's a good spot to go start. And so reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with Greta. That girl got you. She's a badass. Love working with her. So yeah. So now book time, baby. So let's rewind the clock 10 years ago, April 7th, 2012. So you're going into your third summer. So let's go 12 years ago. You go,
you're Asian, man.
Oh, you're one of those people that started selling in middle school. That's what happened.
Right. I've heard of those. Yeah. So
how did you get into it?
I was in I forget what class I was in, but a big lecture room at UF, because they recruit with the little yellow sheets. They pass them out like what's your name and phone number? Do you want to make $8,000? Like an average of $8,000, So filled that out. I was like, that's so much money I can't fathom, and got a phone call that night and showed up to a info session the next day. It was with Mark Rao. I was in the very front row. He freaking eagle-eyed me like you are going to sell books, So Chris Shaw was my student manager. He had already sold for like 9 summers at that point. So he was had been there for a long time. And so yeah, that's how I came on board. The packet, the interview session, interview packet for the 3 days that you're supposed to do this homework and bring it back. I didn't do it once. I was just in really bad classes, and I was just I just didn't get to it. And so in the interview process, they're really trying to reverse psychology sell you, prove to me why you should do this. And I'm just look, I'm a winner. Put me on your team and I'll kill it. But I don't have time for this. That was like my interview process was kind of like backwards, but
I'm awesome. You're lost.
yeah.
Are we doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's epic. I know what you mean by the Mark Rouse stare. Like, especially if you're ever like at a meeting, like later on, like at a get back, and Mark Rouse giving a part, and he's like, I don't know, it's like it's awesome. Like, I wish I had that kind of intensity when it's like I'm looking into your soul. I'm looking into your soul, and you're like, yeah, whatever you say.
Yeah,
dude.
and he like it's funny we're called Eagle Blitz because he has like this really mad like eagle like ferocity look, you know.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome, and he's funny too. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, and he's what, the VP now, vice president? Yeah.
Yeah, or director of I don't even know. He's something up higher up. He's
Well, I don't know if you remember Melanie Howell, if you ever met her, but
yeah.
So Melanie is still one of my best friends. We were at a music festival together this past weekend. She was in my wedding, but she was Mark Rouse's secretary, so the secretary for Eagle Blitz. And so I still have like a little leg in the door where I get all my like book drama. You know, but like there has been a lot of changes and stuff. So back when I sold, Dan Moore was president and Mark Rouse was the Eagle Blitz director, and I dated a DSM for a little while, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, yeah. Saucy. Is that a story for another time, or do we get into
Story for another time. That'll go in the no-name box.
That goes in we might tell that story, but without the names.
Yeah, right.
their name rhymed with. I'm just kidding. No, that's funny. So okay, so culture shock, right? You go from are you from Florida originally, or?
Yeah, but I'm from the Panhandle, so like I graduated with 80, 90 kids. Like our school was like one stoplight, kindergarten through 12th grade, and I went to UF. And like, so that was like insane culture shock in the first place. And then I went and sold books my first summer in Mississippi. So that was like, okay, back in the sticks, you know, stuff that I'm used to. So
shit.
Yeah.
Mississippi was like your own cousin.
Was like really good territory for a first summer for sure. So
yeah, you felt like
not that there's any good territory, but
No, there is. That's some bullshit. Everybody is like, territory doesn't matter. No, it matters, man. It does. It totally matters where you're at.
Matters.
So our merch is launching. Actually, probably tomorrow. Fingers crossed. But we're gonna have shirts in like they're gonna say things like "territory matters" or like that kind of stuff, just to make it funny and just like the good old things where people are like, "This isn't like that." There's no favorites in Southwestern. Yes, there are. It's okay that there are too, by the way. But yes, of course there are. It's the people that sell a lot. That's the favorites because they make you the most money. Sure. And that's okay. It makes sense. You know, don't hide behind it. It's great. That's a good idea. Then, so that first summer, man, you were top 10 first year. And it went great. What were some memories and some stories from that first summer that really like stuck out to you?
Oh my God.
I know you got some written down.
Yeah. So first summer. So it was my 19th birthday. The first day I sold books, knocking on doors. So, and they told us, you know, here's your map. They say start way out, you know, outside your territory and work in. So I'm like on the farthest, like basically there was a canyon and then there was a mailbox. And like a canyon, like a red clay pit. Like where the people shotguns. And then there was a mailbox. So it's like first door, you know, 7:35 because I'm an overachiever. And so I drive up to this like decrepit shack and I go knock on so the door was open, but the screen door was shut. And I knocked on the screen door and the hinge popped out. And so now the door is like sitting out. And right then a bunch of flies just came out of the house. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's like still dewy outside and wet and stuff. This is my first knock. And I look and there was an old lady on the couch. So I'm like, hi, Miss Jones. And she was not responsive at all. I couldn't tell. Her eyes were open. I thought she was dead. I thought that's where all the flies came from. She was not, and it smelled awful there. But she's just not responding at all. And I'm just like, all right, Like I tried 3 times, picked up my book bag and sample case, ran back to my car. I'm trying to drive out of her yard and my car gets stuck because I'm trying to like go up a like mountain like I go back to the door. She's still not responsive. Pretty sure she's dead. And phone has no service. Phone was in the trunk. Phone has no service. So I just like broke a bunch of sticks and put them underneath my back tires to get traction. And so I got like one tire out, but the other one was like not coming out. So I like looked on the map for like what might be the next house. But I was like, it was so rural getting here that like the next house could be on the other side of that gorge. So So I'm just like trying to figure out where to go next. And then like, 1972 Chevy Silverado single cab,
Oh.
and he's like, hey, what you doing at Granny's house? And I'm like, it's my birthday. I'm
I didn't kill her, I swear.
Yeah. So he's like, well, I ain't got my yank rope. So we just gonna see what we're gonna do here. And he was like, all right, drive forward, drive back, drive forward. So I'm just tearing up her grass because it's also wet and dewy. And I'm in a Mustang, like a V8 Mustang. And it's just like digging trenches. And like finally I have this like Tokyo drift slide up over the hill. And then I just was like, bye. Like I didn't even stop and say sorry or thank you or anything. I just hauled ass. And then about 3 houses later, he's at that house too. And he's like, oh, I thought you said you were lost, not selling stuff, And I was like, so how's your grandma? Like, is she good? So that was my first knock.
Welcome to Mississippi.
Yeah. It'd be like that sometimes. She was alive. She was alive.
Barely, but she was.
Yeah.
Mississippi is sounds like Mississippi is as pretty as advertising and advertised. Holy shit, that's funny. That is hilarious. That's your first story? Oh
yeah,
man.
It was my first very first knock, and I think I sold 3 custos that day, all during gravy. So it was like a long first day, and sold 3 customers during gravy. I go back to my house, and I was expecting so my new roommates that we had bonded through sales school, and they were all first years. We had a rookie HQ. It was like all the badasses from sales school. So I get back to the house thinking that it's going to be like cupcakes and, happy birthday. And they had all but one had quit and gone home already.
Oh my.
So it was just me and one other girl. Yeah. So like that, happy birthday. No, like they were just out.
Was that May? What is that? May 12th?
May 11th.
May 11th. Damn, it was close. May 11th. Yeah. Damn, dude. That's hilarious. That is one of the best first store stories I've heard ever. It's this crazy moment, that first store, isn't it? Like, cause you've been training for like a week, if not more, during the semester, right? And you're like mentally preparing for this moment, but I don't care who you are. If you were not nervous in your first store, you have no soul, man. It's like shit. Like what's going on? That's wild. I was in the country too. I was in upstate New York. It was not Mississippi, but it was definitely like the sticks for sure. And it was the same type of vibe where you're just like, it's an old lady and she's like, what do you want? And you're like, shit. Like, you're supposed to have kids and look like my senior manager. Damn it. Oh man. That's
good times. Yeah, and then also my first summer was record-breaking floods in Nashville. So and it happened as I was on the drive up. So this is the summer of 2010. It was like May 4th, 3rd, 4th, something like that. I'm driving up on the interstate, and like over the radio, it's just like tornado warning for this county, the county that I'm in. And I'm like driving from, I was like driving north, and I was about to pass Birmingham, and I was like, my mom has some friends in Birmingham, I think. I was like, I have to get off of the road. Like, I'm in a Mustang, and the highway, the interstate was like filling with water and shit. And so I call my mom. She calls a friend of a friend. They send me their address. I think this was before Google Maps, so they had to like give me really, really good directions to their house. This was like a townhouse in the middle of Birmingham. So in a storm, can't read road signs. So I get to their house and I was like still wrapping my head around like the thing that I was doing because I was recruited kind of late, like I think like early April, and you know we left the first week in May, like the day after finals and stuff. So I didn't have a lot of time to wrap my head around what I was doing. I just knew I was going to be good at it. So I stop in Birmingham. I find these people's house. And they're like, so, you know, what your mom didn't really tell us. What is exactly are you headed to Nashville for? And I was like, well, it's kind of like this, like, it's the hardest internship in the U.S., according to Forbes magazine. Like, that's what he just led with. And I was like, because like, sometimes you pussyfoot around it. Like, you don't want to be like, I'm knocking on doors 80 hours a week selling educational books and products, you know? So I was kind of like tiptoeing around it because I hadn't sold yet. You know, I wasn't officially a book girl yet. And he's like, are you talking about Southwestern? And this guy's like 55 or so. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. He like just runs out of the kitchen, goes upstairs into the attic, and like comes back out with his first year, like top first year award. And he's like, I only sold one summer. I would never do it again. He's like, I didn't know what I was getting into either. He's like, but that one summer was all I needed to be really proud of myself. And like, you're gonna have a great summer. And so like just the tenacity that it took to like continue driving through tornadoes and stuff, and then that like, you know, meeting that person that was like a friend of a friend I'd never met before, and so that was just like a really neat story because I had never heard of Southwestern before I did it. You know, I didn't know book people or anything. I like was still figuring out if it was legit, like at checkout my first summer.
You're like, so where are the airplanes? Southwest Airlines.
Where the hell are they? Like waiting for it to cash, man. When it clears, I'll know if this was all a sham or not. You know.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
And so we get
person on the air. Whoever that was, get us that contact again and see if you can go back 12 years.
Get him on the air for sure. I should. I'm friends with him on Facebook, but and then the wild part is I actually met the room that I stayed in that was his daughter's. I met her at college. Like I've known her for a while, and I like somehow brought up her dad to like maybe telling a book story or something. And she's like, dude, you were in my room. Like I was in college and you were at my like sleeping in my so it was like, whoa. Yeah. But with the flooding too, you know, we couldn't even drive to the headquarters. Like it was like that road, what's the Atrium Way, was completely underwater. Like, you know, like we couldn't, it like, I don't know if they sump pumped it out or something, but like we couldn't get to the HQ the home office the first day. It was wild.
That's crazy. Hold on. That was a lot of crazy stories all in one. You met a guy who was a friend of a friend who happened to have sold books when you told him you were going to go join this kind of a cult thing. Yeah. And he was like, this is great. Also, later on, you're telling me that when you went back, you told this girl that you were selling books door to door, and that this crazy story where you met this guy who also
this friend that I've had for years now in Gainesville.
That's my father.
Yeah, you were in my room.
That's when I had my first period. You were in the same room that happened. Wow, that's insane. Yeah, that's wild. The book world, it shows you how small the real world is. You know what I'm saying? I think I told this story on the show before, but I'm gonna tell you the story. I met a lady who, well, there's two of them. I met a lady who knew my mom up in upstate New York, and I was like, the book. I was like, I knock on the door or whatever. She's like, can I help you? She thinks that I'm kind of like, she doesn't believe that I'm actually selling books. I'm like, no, like I'm from Nebraska. I'm a college kid. She's like, Nebraska? Where in Nebraska? Because she's testing me. And I'm like, I have my plates say Nebraska. Like, what are you, you know? And she's like, yeah, but anybody can get that. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm from Grand Island. And she's like, oh, okay. So she's like with me. And then I'm like, she goes, I'm like, where are you at? How do you know Grand Island? And she goes, oh, well, I used to work at the hospital there. And now at the time I was like, wait, how long ago? She's like, 6 years ago. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did you ever know? What did you do there? She's like, I was at the reception. And I'm like, did you ever know one of the interpreters? Like, tell me about them. She's like, yeah, there's a guy from Venezuela, but then there was this lady. She was super feisty. I'll never forget her. She was from Colombia. And I'm like, that's my mom. And she's like, no way. And it's like, yeah, her name is Sandra. She's like, oh my God, yeah, we love Sandy, is what they call her. And so that was one.
That's
and two, Two, this is my favorite story of how small the world is. It was my third summer. It was in Pennsylvania, one of the days that I was actually on schedule. And it was like a Wednesday at noon. And there was this house at the top of the hill up in the country, you know how like there was like miles apart sometimes, and you're like driving for a while, like, where the hell's the next house? And so I see this house, I'm like, I gotta knock on that one, because it's gotta be, it's gotta say hi to human. There's a car in the driveway, I knock on the door, and this lady has a shirt on, and it says, there's a restaurant in Grand Island called Balls, BALZ. It's like a sports bar. Really nice, good wings. And it says Grand Island, Nebraska. And I start doing the approach. I'm like, hi, are you the mom here? Okay, cool. My name's Andres. And I'm like, wait a minute. Where did you get that shirt? And she goes, oh, it's just this bar in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, wait, that's in Nebraska. And she goes, how did you know that? I said, I'm from Nebraska. And she goes, no way. I'm like, yeah, look at my license plate. She's like, no way. I go, I can prove it to you. And then those shirts have the slogan for Balls is "Who needs Hooters when you got balls?" That's a great slogan for a bar, right? But I'm like, I can prove it to you. The back of that shirt says "Who needs Hooters?" And then she finished it. She's like, "When you've got balls." And we clicked. She ended up not buying, but I was like, "What in the world?" Like the
how does she not buy after that? She needs a just complimentary set.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, come on, man, buy a cookbook. Like, damn, this is crazy right now. That you were wearing that shirt on the day that I came by on the, like, happened to be wearing that shirt. You could have been wearing any other shirt. We would have never known. Turns out she takes her and her husband take a bike ride, like a motorcycle ride through the country, and they always stop at Grand Island to eat wings at Balls because they're pretty good. So anyway, small world.
I don't know of anything in Nebraska, so that seems like super serendipitous.
Yeah, it must have been wild for her, because to her, Nebraska is probably like to me, it was home, right? But to her, it was like some random spot. She's like this fucking podunk town. Like, it's the third biggest town in the whole state, and it's 50,000 people. That's how big Nebraska is. It's not. There's more cows than people. It's not a place, if you go once, then you're like, all right, check. I don't need to go.
Yeah, done. Nebraska.
You need to visit again. It's like Mississippi. You went once, got it. All right, next state. Yeah, for real. Question for you. So how did you I like asking this, because I think it lets me know a little bit more about who you are, but what part of this whole thing really attracted you? I mean, a lot of people say money, so I get it. Everybody went for the money. Everybody heard that $8,700 is right for the summer, and they're like, yep, I'm in. But to you, I always think there's something else, something deeper inside. It takes a special person to say yeah to something like that, especially closer to the summer. So for you, what do you think it was besides the money that you were like, God, I just got to go do this? It could be a scam, but I got to try it.
I've always been super adventurous, like up for the challenge kind of like person, and like getting off of the farm to go to UF was like this big change of pace and place, and I think that transition, like realizing that there are people that have different beliefs than me that are like just as wholeheartedly believe in them and have integrity with it, and like indoctrinated, basically. Like, people believe in other things just as much as I believe in my thing, and so so getting off of the farm and meeting all these new people, like UF Gainesville is really a cultural hub in the middle of a farm area. So like this then being like, so my options were go back home and work, on the beach in Destin, probably make around the same money, because like tourism is really big in that area. So it's like, go back home and do that, or, do this thing where you go meet like 30 plus new families every single day. Sounds crazy, but I was like, let's go see who I can meet. I've never met a stranger, so let's do it.
Damn.
So yeah, just the vulnerability, the excitement, the challenge I was in. So
that's epic. I love that. I love that answer. That's a great answer. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So
yeah.
Damn. So that was your first day, is you pretty much met a near-death lady on your birthday, and your roommates quit. So how'd the rest of the summer go? Because you were a top 10 student, so that you must have had a wild ride.
So the first 7 or 8 weeks of the summer, me and this one other girl were in our rookie HQ, and we were both neck and neck. And we were also the farthest away from like our Sunday meetings and everything. So like the only reason why they didn't split us up and put us elsewhere, like from the get-go when that happened the first day, was like we were just badasses. So we were like, oh no, we're in it. Like, we're gonna, make this work, whatever. And we were both very competitive with each other, and we were both selling, from the get-go. Like, I never had a 0 day in any of my years selling books. So, yeah, so like we stayed up there, but then after about 8 weeks, other people from other like within our org had started, like first years that started dropping. And so it was like, okay, now, you know, and I had also sold, like I had knocked on just about every door in Panola County. So it was like, you know, either continue driving really far from our HQ or move, and that was in northern Mississippi, or move to southern Mississippi, and like your Sunday drives would be shorter. You'd be, you know, with the you know, OL and stuff like that. So we got moved. So that was like really tricky for me. Like I knew every single name, like period, in my county, which wasn't hard because there was only 3 last names in Panola County. So, but I knew everybody, you know, and like basically starting over when other people are hitting their stride at like week 7, week 8 was like a new challenge for me. And also like Brandon, Mississippi, where I moved, was like very suburby at first, where they get a lot of door knocking. Like I remember like knocking on, there was kids stuff everywhere. So I'm like, oh, either this is the daycare or they've got 10 kids, but I'm smelling a buyer. So I'm knocking on the door and the lady's like, yeah, you can come in, but you know, I've got someone here right now, so you'll just have to wait. So she sits me down in the foyer on this couch, and I realized that next to me is a Cutco salesperson. Next to him is a guy with a clipboard that's selling aluminum siding, and she was currently being given a demo by a Kirby guy. So there was literally 4 in the house at once, and I was like, "I'll come back. Like, will your husband be home around 5?" You know. So like that's what it went from. Yeah, it went from like, "Come on in, Shug, get some sweet tea," to like, you know, 4 people at the same door at the same time kind of deal. So people were just like, the territory, they say territory doesn't matter, but like I didn't change anything in my approach or in my like, you know, spiel or whatever. And it was just like considerably more challenging. I was like, man, I'd never want to be a walker. Like,
yeah.
You know? But before I moved, this is a wild one. I got bit by a goat. And it was like pretty serious. Yeah.
There's a soundbite right there. I got bit by a goat and it was pretty serious.
Yeah. So what happened was I was in the woods in Mississippi, and it was, you know, the families are typically like trailer, brick house, you know, and they all live on the same family property. Like one person like got a degree, then everybody else is just like on the property and like, you know, mobile homes and stuff. And so you know, you knock on the trailers first, you know, you get the gravy about the brick house, you know, they're the ones that work and stuff. So anyways, I run up to this trailer door and I, you know, put my sample case down, I knock, I turn, I'm waving at trees and stuff. And then I hear this like metal on metal noise, and I'm like, what is that? And I realize it's the door like being jostled. And then I look back at the door, and there's a chain going from the doorknob to like the porch was built like a foot off of the door for some reason, like it wasn't attached to the house, and this chain was going under the porch, and I'm like, oh, and yanking, so it was like pulling the door shut. And I'm like, oh damn, there's got to be a like pit bull on the other end of this. So I you know, lean over to see what's on the other end of the chain, and I guess that it had enough slack that it got back on the porch behind me. And as I'm like butt in the air, it bit my left cheek so hard that it was like, have you ever been like pain has hit you so hard that you could like your squeal didn't make a noise? It was like so I'm assuming it's a dog, right? Like what else bites like that? So I grab my sample case and I'm like holding my butt and like running back to the car, and I realize it's a goat. Like it's a goat that had, you know, gotten back, and it's just like arr, arr, like get angry about it, right? So I go to the next trailer and I didn't see a car there, so I'm just like, nah, I'm not getting out of this one. So I go to the brick house. Like this story gets wild, so buckle in. So I go to the brick house. I knock on the door. And
It's
the lady
already
is
wild.
so nice. She lets me in. She sits me down on her like vanilla colored couch. And then, and I just like, the answer lies behind the next door. So I was like shaking it off. I didn't know the extent of it yet because of adrenaline or whatever. So she sits me down on like her new vanilla colored couch in her living room. And she's like, oh, do you want some sweet tea? Help yourself. So I get up to go pour myself a glass of tea. And she goes, oh, honey, you started your period. And I'm like, I was like, no, I didn't. And she's like, yeah, you did. And I was like, I don't think so. She pointed at her white couch and there was a pool of blood. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, I didn't start my period. I was like, I knocked on the door 2 houses down and I got bit by a goat. And she's like, oh, Spiffy, the guard goat. She's like, yeah, that's my husband's cousin. Like, he just like, can't keep the whole door on the hinges or whatever. And so she's like, well, look, let me, she had kids. So she gave me a pair of pants. Like we just like basically put paper towels on it. And she gave me, but she was really skinny and I'm not. So it was like a pair of pants that like were supposed to be like joggers or like big sweatpants. And they're like squeezed them up over my butt. And it was like starting to become painful at that point. But she told me that her husband was a nurse practitioner in town and that she would like tell him that I was coming to get it checked out. But of course I had to like get the sit down first. So I ended up selling her. Like I just did a quick sit down, sold her like the first 2 sets of kids' books. And she was a buyer, and she felt bad for me. And so she buys the books. I'm like, awesome. She pays for it up front with a check, whatever. So I'm like, well, that was a good sale. And I probably do need to like see if this needs stitches or whatever. So I drive to the center of town to the clinic, and the guy, like the husband, I guess that she buys from everyone that comes to the door and he's tired of it because she's a stay-at-home mom. Oh, well, you're the one who just sold my wife some books, huh? Like, we need any more books. We get books from Dolly Parton and books from this and that and whatever. And he's like, and you got bit by Spiffy, huh? Like, you're just going up in people's yards. And I'm just like, yeah. And he's like, all right. And he brings me back into the room. He hasn't taken my name, like any like drug allergies, anything. He brings me back into like a room and he's like, drop them and bend over. But I brought my sample case in with me. So I just peel these bloody pants off and I just like lean over the table and like he stitched me up he cleaned it up, stitched me up a couple times, and it's like inner cheek, And he's like, so were they these good books? So I'm doing a demo over my shoulder as he's like stitching my ass. Yeah, we got color shapes, squares, and numbers. So,
oh my god, the goat, the goat demo, the
great goat demo.
The greatest demo of all time.
Yeah, and again, like he didn't bill me. Like I never saw the dude again. It's just like you go to a clinic in Florida and they're like license insurance, like blood type, all of this. In Mississippi, it was just like drop them.
My God, that's a good. Mississippi is if you're ever gonna get bit by a goat in your ass, in your inner ass left cheek, it's to go. You got to do it.
There's a place to do it, man.
Yeah.
Kept my expenses real low on that one.
My husband's cousin. You mean both of your cousins? You guys are in Mississippi. That's what that's what you mean. Holy shit! This is all your first summer. My God.
Those first like 6 weeks or so. Yeah.
So hold on. You had to go back to deliver. Did you see?
She paid in full. I tried to deliver twice and she wasn't home, so I dropped him off.
Yeah, you left him by Spiffy.
No, he would have ate him, no doubt.
God, have you been afraid of goats since then?
No, but like I definitely am more aware of like what's on the other end of ropes.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
They tell you what to do with dogs. They don't tell you what to do with goats.
Yeah. I made my ass an easy target on that one.
That's There's a soundbite again. I made my ass an easy target. I need to what with 54 minutes and 45 seconds in. I need to put this on a reel somewhere and be like, I made my ass an easy target of that one. That's going somewhere on social media. That's hilarious. Got your ass bit by a goat. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So this is the greatest first summer of all time.
Yeah,
Near
it was
dead
great.
lady, and you got your ass bit by a goat. How did you decide to come back? Or wait, there's gotta be more stories in this first summer then.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let me tell you. So when I moved, you know, and the wild part about moving in with the OL, like after, you know, 7-8 weeks of killing it with Courtney, what's her name? So after I moved down with the OL, I just remember like I had gotten off work at like 10 p.m. It was almost a 5-hour drive, and you know, woke up the next morning and it's like, all right, let's go to the breakfast spot. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so fucking tired, you know, but it's like first day in the new territory, get your maps, get your, you know, credits, whatever. And we went to the restaurant, and they went every single day to the same Huddle House where they had it worked out, where it was $3.50 for a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit that they had every single day, like, and it was ready for them on the dot at 7:15, whatever. She was like, oh well, as it gets. Well, yeah. I show up for my first morning. There's been a lot of movement, a lot of changes. I've driven through the night, and like she orders that for me, and I didn't know that they had all this system, and I was like, I'm gonna have the French toast, like, and she's like, no, she's gonna have what we're having. I literally looked at her and I said, I'll have the French toast with strawberries, please. Like, I just like no, like y'all control every single element of everything. I've had 3 hours of sleep, like, and I need sugar to get through this one, you know. Like, yeah. I didn't have a good good first like hour with my OL roommate, like, and you know, also like when you've been crushing it as a first year, and especially in a rookie HQ, like, you know, not that it got to my head or anything like that, but it was like, I'm 8 weeks in, I know how to sell books, right? So like going from that to like, here's now this point of authority that like, also the HQ was like really wild too, because there were 2 rooms that we could be in, and there was 4 of us girls, but the OL used one of the rooms as her office for her to like take records and all at the end of the night. And so like one room was off limits, but to her. And then the other room was like 2 twin size mattresses pushed together, and 4 of us living on that bed. And so whoever sold the least books that day had to sleep in the crack.
What the hell?
Yeah, and it was just like, you mean I'm living there with 4 women in one room, and there's this other room right here? Like, so yeah, and here's the thing, I'm very, like, I love my OL now. It was just a rocky, like, I still care about her. We still talk like once or twice a year. I went to London and stayed at her house. You know, so like we figured out our workspace, but there were 4 like type A females on 2 twin size beds. Like, it was like a lot of feminine energy. Yeah, but so I tried selling within the city limits, Brandon, and it was just like so hard. It was not clicking for me. And they were like, well, there's this country area that's a little bit out here, but like that's more of your vibe. You know, somebody's going to have to sell it eventually. So why don't you go out there? And so I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. So I was driving 45 minutes every day to Puckett, Mississippi. Now, Puckett is the Tyson chicken capital, like chicken production capital of the like U.S. Yeah, of the world, presumably.
Who was it? Haynes Maxwell? No, one of our guests before sold in that same town, and that's all he had to eat like that summer. And to this day, who was that? I'll have to get if we'll put the card up. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that episode, it'll be at the top corner by the logo, the ponytails. But there was a guy that he said, he's like, I couldn't fucking eat like anything Tyson to this day. I still don't eat it because it's just like disgusting. Yeah,
right. And the smell
was done. Yeah,
like so there's these giant chicken farms. They're just like white domes. They almost look like really big greenhouses that are like, you know, long half cylinders, and then like you could tell how many like production houses that like a farm had by how nice the farmhouse was. You know, like if they only had one row, it was like kind of middle lower class. But if they had 4 rows, it was like plantation house. And yeah, and then there was the workers' homes, and there was a lot of undocumented workers in that area. And you would know because I would knock on the front door and you would just hear people run out the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how it works.
Hugging Mississippi. But the other thing about it was that it was a 1A or 2A school, but they had won the state football championship for like 10 years in a row. And like their high schoolers, like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders were so big that sometimes I like thought that they were the dads at the door. Like, hey, is Miss Jones here? Like, oh no, mom's not home. like, oh shit. You know, they were just that big and like hairy. And it's just like you have to wonder if it was the runoff from all of the chicken farms, like, you know, just lots of like chemical spill like into the water stream. Like it was, yeah, just I mean full beards, like balding at like 13. It makes no sense.
Hello. What grade are you in? 7th. Shit. That's so insane.
Yeah.
Damn. That, you know, and it's interesting because I'm glad you brought this up. OLs who were like that, by the way, if you're listening, you don't know what OL means, org leader. So, you know, we're divided into groups to make it more manageable. Sometimes as low as like 10 people, sometimes as big as 50, but it's usually one person, one organization leader that kind of runs that group of kids, you know, and it's like a chain of command, right? So, but the org leader is like the person that kind of runs the whole thing. And so, you had some org leaders that were like so by the book like that you're just like, fuck you, because I understand what you mean. My first summer, I was crushing it too. And it was funny when a manager who was not selling as much as I was would tell me to be like, do this. And I'm like, no. Like, no, I'm doing it's working. I just hit PC. Like, what are you talking about? What are you
Yeah, right.
I saw you walk out first in the recognition circle, dude. What are you doing? Like, don't fucking talk to me about how to do this. Like, you should watch me. No, you go do this. Listen.
Yeah.
You gotta be coachable, right? And that was a lesson I learned at the beginning, but I understand exactly what that predicament where you're just like, just let me do my thing. I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
Yeah, and then she made me for like no reason at all. Like I never followed anyone my first summer except for one time, and like it was because like I never needed to follow. And like to me, you know, when you're following a manager in their territory, it's they're making the sales. You know, they're not watching you sell in their territory. So like you're watching how they do things and whatever. Well, to me, it's like, well, if I'm gonna take a day off of selling books and making money to follow someone, then I want to follow like the best person in the org. But like they already had like a lineup or whatever. So I was like, if you're making me follow someone, I want to follow someone good. They were like, no, but there's this like, you know, you got to follow this like second year. And I'm like, okay, I've outsold him by like twice, but whatever, you know, and he's selling on a Indian reservation. So I was like, I'll go see what that's about, you know, for shits and giggles. So, so I sold behind him. And for some reason, and I saw as I was a manager my second and third summer, I like saw this from the other perspective. And I don't know why it's like a phenomenon that happens in selling books, but first years trying to disrupt like managers, like just to like see how much they can like get away with. I think it's like to try to prove that like schedule is your lifeline, but not everybody works 80 freaking hours a week, like without breathing, without shitting, you know? So like for some reason, the one day that I followed someone, my first summer, on the Indian reservation, they had like some kid, as he was selling, I was like trying to distract these like 5, you know, Native American children because they were like really disruptive. And he was like trying to, you know, make his names work on the dad. And one of them was like 14 and he gave me a bag of spice. Do you know what spice is? Like that fake weed stuff. It was like the summer that it came out. It was like herbs drenched in chemicals, but it was like how you would pass a drug test if you wanted to get high, but you didn't smoke weed. And
oh my God.
So this kid gives me this bag of it. And, you know, I'm asthmatic. I'm allergic to marijuana, so I can't even smoke weed. So I'm like, you know, what's this about? So he gives it to me, whatever. And so we get back in the truck And I think said manager sold him, or I can't remember or not. But we get back in the truck, and I was like, "Yo, so you know, I was like, with our gravy, we're definitely gonna hit first for the day." He said, "So you want to try some of this?" And I like wiggled the bag, and he's like, "What are you talking about? No, I would never." And he's like, "What is it?" And I like pretended like I knew what it was. Like, "Oh man, this is like really good dope." Like I have no idea. And he was like, "All right, how are we gonna smoke it?" And I realized that like we had no sort of smoking apparatus. Like he's like, "Well, I've got a lighter in the center console somewhere." And so I found the lighter, and then I found a toilet paper roll, and I took all the toilet paper off of it, and I made a steamroller with a gum wrapper, like a big red. I used the tin foil, and I put it over the top, and I like. If you don't know what a steamroller is, just like Urban Dictionary.
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it is.
So here I am, like literally just seeing how far I can get this guy to go because I had to talk him into it, right? Well, we hit this stuff, and I mean, it was weird. Like for a few minutes, it was like out of body experience. Later, realized the stuff is called space. It's the spice called space, and so like he had to pull over. When like but the thing is, we go back to drive. I hit it a couple of times. He chiefed it a couple of times. Ironically, chiefing it like at a reservation. But anyway, it was just really, really weird. I don't know what kind of chemicals this was, like formaldehyde. I don't know. I've never come across anything like it since. But anyway, here's the thing. He's like, "All right, let's pretend that didn't happen and go to the next house." And I'm like, "Okay." So I've got his maps open. I'm looking at where he's already been, and he keeps looking at me from the driver's seat and like intermittently like pulling over and looking at me, and he keeps going. And like I'm telling him to go left, and every time I give him a direction, he goes the other way. And he just gets us deeper and deeper into this forest. And like I didn't know why he was doing the opposite of what I was telling him. And finally he's like, "You're trying to kill me." Like he had a snap, like a mental snap or something. He's like, "You're trying to kill me. You brought me out here and you did this on purpose. Are you even a 19-year-old book girl?" Like freaking out. And then he like didn't even put the car in park and jumped out of the car and runs into the woods. And I'm like, "What is happening?" Like, like I had to scoot over and put the truck in park and like, "I'm not trying to kill you. Come back." Like it was just like,
oh my.
I don't know if he had some underlying like, I don't know what you call that, like schizophrenia or something, or maybe like the drugs hit him just really way harder than it did me. Like we still don't know what's in it. Maybe I don't know, but it was really awkward. That was at like 4 p.m. And the rest of the day, like like convincing him to get back in the truck and stuff. Like it was wild. That happened.
Dude lost his mind. Yeah. Holy shit!
Yeah, like
this is
literally
all your first summer.
That was my first summer.
Oh,
that was like week 9 or 10. Yeah, like right after I moved.
Dude, what the frick?
Yeah.
Holy shit! That's that's wild. This is the kind of shit that Native Americans used to go see God.
Yeah, maybe it was peyote. I don't know what this kid gave me, honestly.
He probably gave you some peyote, and you were like,
"Yeah."
You guys went to Mars.
Yeah, and so like I don't know why I like pressured him into doing that. Like I think it was just like a way to undermine the authority structure that was, because it's very rigid structure, like first year, second year, manager, AOL, OL, like so as a first year person doing well, like just seeing how much I could get away with him, because I was a good girl back then, So I don't know. And again, like years later, like I was killing it my second summer. So I had a first year following me almost every day, and like, yes, like I saw them doing it. And I'm like, "Hey, I know what you're trying to pull here." Like,
yeah,
like it's a privilege to follow me. You're not going to get me running out in the woods.
You ain't trying to kill me. I already know what this does.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that peyote again.
Holy shit. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, no fucking way. Get out of it. I seen this from the other side. I know who you are. Mm-hmm. I know what you're trying to do, champ. Damn, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's week 9. So how did you decide you wanted to come back? More peyote? Was that
No, okay. After I finished my first summer, and here too, so at the very end, I was so burnt out by the last 2 weeks of the summer that like, and Chelsea, she was in my wedding, so I don't think we laugh about it now because it's been so long since we sold books, but we were both like very top first years, but she was in my HQ with me with the OL and all, and and we were both very competitive, whatever, and like we became friends after the summer because we were in like, competition mode during the summer and roommates, and like whoever sold the least books had to sleep in the crack, and you never wanted to sleep in the crack of the beds. And anyway,
not with stitches in your butt cheek.
Yeah, so I was like mentally done, and also in my head it was really scary that like I sold 350 plus customers my first summer, and we had 1 week to deliver, right? Like, so Mississippi was very like low God, what did you call it? Points, credits, how many units? It was like a lot of custos, very low unit. You could upsell a lot for sure, but anyways, I had 350 customers in 2 different areas, and we had 1 designated week to sell, or like to deliver, and I had to immediately go back to UF to start classes, like drop ad. So I was like, there was like towards the end of my first summer, there was like this sense of like, okay, I've done really well, but I'm fucking over it, and like, how is this going to work logistically? And so after we had our morning meeting, execs and all, we got into our cars, and Lucy drives away, and me and Chelsea, like, just in our cars, we just looked at each other, and I started crying. And she comes to, like, she gets in my car, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm done. Like, I'm so done." I was like, "I want to finish strong. I want to do well, but like, I'm trying to wrap my head around how this is going to work, whatever." And she's like, "I'm so done too." She's like, "I haven't gotten off schedule." She's like, "But I got into my car planning on going back to the HQ for the first time this entire summer." And so we were like brainstorming it, and we were like, okay, how could we like finish strong, but like not lose our minds, And so we agreed to sell together for the last 2 weeks and split the units, right? Or like, I'd make a sale, she'd make a sale, whatever, right? So that's what we did. And we had the time of our lives selling books together every day, putting up. We were still on schedule, but like obviously our units were lower because she'd sell, I'd sell, we're learning from each other and whatever. And we were both like, we are no shame, like ridiculous people. And so we would do things like when we had been selling for like 3-4 hours and hadn't or knocking on doors and hadn't made a sale, like we'd do something to like change up our vibe. So we would do like do you know the Tommy Boy scene where like they're getting pulled over and they get out and they're just like, bees, save yourself.
No way.
Yeah. So we just like, there was this really old lady, and I was like, so Chelsea was driving, and I was like, that old lady was a real bitch to me. And she was like, she goes, "You ever seen Tommy Boy?" And without even rehearsing it or telling me, I knew. I was like, I know the exact scene. Like, we were reading each other's minds at this point. So she pulls over. This lady's like watering her lawn. She pulls over, and we jump out of the car. Please, save yourself. She's like trying to spray us off, and she like runs into the house. And like, then I see Chelsea just like stop, drop, and roll down her hill. Like, and then we get back into the car, and we're like, daughter,
That's the best.
Yeah. And then this one day, I was like super duper tired, and so it was Chelsea's turn to start the day. So I was like basically sleeping in the car. Like I would go in like every third or fourth house with her because I was so tired. But it gets to be like 1-2 p.m. and she hasn't made a sale yet. And she's like getting frustrated, tired, whatever. And so I was like, well, let me take the next one, like let me knock a little bit. Just give your brain a break, whatever. We run up, I sell like almost the bag, and the lady pays half. And I had her make it out to Chelsea Kohlberg, like instead of me, because Chelsea was just red. She's like, she has been knocking all day. Here's her pony, and I've sold it. And like, we weren't splitting units, we were splitting sales. So I was like, you can make that out to Chelsea Kohlberg. Like,
let's go.
And then the lady loaded us down with like beef jerky and snacks and stuff. And I remember going back to the car and Chelsea just being like, we're going to be friends forever because you have integrity. And like, they were just like, we're the best, and like crying. Yeah.
It's crazy how much you can bond with people because of that shared trauma. You know what I mean? And it is trauma in like people. Trauma is kind of a buzzword, but it is. I mean, you're going through
Oh,
something
it
that's
was
really hard,
traumatic for
man.
sure.
It's insane. I mean, you saw a dead person, 12 weeks earlier, or what was to be a dead person, and you're healing. Your ass cheeks are healing from a goat bite.
Just one.
And one of your ass cheek is your left ass cheek is healing, right? And now you have to switch places. You're going on barely any sleep and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yeah, that takes a toll on you. And I think that's what makes us like us. You know what I mean? And not to exclude people who don't sell books. Every time I say that, I feel like I'm saying like we're better people. It's not that we're better people at all. No. But it's just like it's definitely an in. And when you know.
We get it. Yeah. There's a rapport, like you said.
Yeah. I hate that turned into a saying that when you know or whatever, but it's like, no, but in this case, yeah, like you cried on a Tuesday. It was raining. I know it was. And you were sitting outside of a fucking porch and some mom yelled at you or whatever. And you cried because whatever. Right. So it's cool that you can bond with someone like that and see them at their most vulnerable because they've been just so, pushed to the limit in the best of, and sometimes not so good of ways, but it is that way for sure. And you guys went back to check out, you guys probably were like, that was so fun. Like, again, if you're listening, you're selling books, would not recommend it, go sell it on your own, but sometimes you need that person and you need that day, or those 2 weeks to just really get through it. And you guys did. That's legit. Damn.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
So checkout comes along. Wait. So hold on. I still don't know. How did you decide to come back? Because that seems like I feel like most people are like,
so checkout, right? So your first summer is so wild because you don't know what you're getting into. People who you thought were going to be like top first years, due to how they acted at sales school, quit week 2. Like you're getting the pace setter, so you're like, seeing people that you've been beating all summer, like starting to like get in their flow. So like, and then you like. You're also still just trusting that you're sending all your money to this company and they're going to give it back,
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so your first summer is really wild. There's like a lot of blind faith. And it's also just like incredibly challenging, like I'd always been a really hard worker, but never inside of an 80-hour, like, Monday through Saturday, and then not even counting work on Sundays and driving and all, it's just really, really taxing, like emotionally, physically, just rejection left and right. Like it's wild. And then there's checkout, like it's almost like you have like Stockholm syndrome on your last day. You're like, I'm done. I'm really done. I drive back to Nashville now and like check out, like settle up my accounts and get my big check.
Can we talk about that feeling when you leave your territory, when you get that cashier's check and you leave your territory and you're like, holy shit, what did I just do? Like just such a crazy emotion. You know what I'm talking about? That drive back. Woof.
Yeah. Well, my drive back, there's a really, really, really weird scenario that happened. So like, I just dwelled on that the whole drive back to Nashville. So
is that a story for another time, or can you spill these?
No, I'll spill it quickly. Trigger warning: murder. Like murder is involved.
Oh, but cool. Welcome to the Ponytails podcast, folks.
Yeah. So I sold in northern Mississippi the first half of the summer. Sold in southern Mississippi the second half of the summer. But then when I delivered, since I was already in like South Mississippi, I delivered there first, and then I drove all the rest of my books to deliver in my my beginning territory. Well, there was, and this is a time crunch because I'm, 350 books worth. I'm trying to, and also a lot of people that had put down payments and stuff in Mississippi didn't go through. So our org had a crap ton of extra books, and like you have to pay the shipping for the books. So, I mean, like if you drive them back to Nashville, you get your money back, but you don't get the shipping back. So like, I was upselling a ton. So I actually needed more books than what I had ordered. So students were like driving me their excess books to, tack on at the end. And anyways, so I'm now delivering, and I had gone by this same house that had paid half for the I don't even remember what they're called now, but the set for high schoolers, you know. So they had paid half. They paid like $250 on a $500 set, and it was like important to them to get it as a whole because they had a 3rd grader and a 10th grader, whatever. Well, when I had sold them the books, the 10th grader was the 3rd grader was totally into it. The 10th grader was really weird, like, you know, emo goth kid, but like was like burning his hand with a lighter or a candle the whole time. Like his dad like made him sit there, and he had a really young stepmom who he like clearly had some animosity with. And so the dad, like the stepmom convinced the dad to buy the books. He paid for them, paid half, whatever. So long story short, fast forward to the end of the summer. So I haven't even thought of this family in, you know, 6 or 8 weeks. And I'm trying to deliver to them. And I keep coming by the house. And I've come 2 or 3 times and there's never anybody home. The lights are always off, whatever. And like I want to deliver these books because like it was kind of confusing what to do if someone had paid for half and then like you couldn't get a hold of them for the other half. Like, do you leave half of the books that they paid for, or do you like keep calling and harassing them to like try to get the other half? Like, because in almost no circumstances do you refund, you know? So I was like really trying to get a hold of these people. Well, about the and also I was almost done. This is like one of the last families I had to get a hold of. I was almost done with my territory and could go back to Nashville at that point. Well, then I realized, like, because I've been going at night, then I go in the daytime and I realize that there is caution tape all around this house that I hadn't noticed. And I was like, man, that's weird. And I had left one of these notes, like, it's your book, girl, get a hold of me. And I was like, caution tape, that's weird. So I went ahead and left 2 of the books because they paid for 2 out of the 4. I went ahead and left them, even though it was like, this doesn't feel good, leaving them here, whatever. Well, I'm headed back to Nashville, and I've been on the road about an hour. And I guess that the stepmom's father had like gone by the house because he had heard people, like somebody had been like going by there a lot. And so he called me from my phone number on the sheet that I left. And he was like, hey, you left these books here. And I was like, yeah. I was like, they paid for them. You know, they didn't pay for all of them, but they paid for these. And I had no idea. Like, I'm leaving. I stayed an extra day trying to make this delivery, make it right. Like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, well, they're all dead. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I can't remember their names now. So I feel like I'm not doing it justice. I'm probably going to get like hexed or something by like talking about this so nonchalantly. But he was the father of the stepmom, and the brother had killed like all of them but the daughter, like the little girl. He killed his dad and the stepmom. And
the kid that was burning himself?
Yeah, that kid. At least that's what the old man told me, you know, and it like lines up. There was caution tape everywhere. All the lights were off, like someone hadn't lived there in a while. And he had said it happened like 3 or 4 weeks prior. And like, so yeah. Yeah. And then the worst part is he was like, now I need you to drive back and get these books and then refund their money. So it's like, it's mind blowing that here I am. I'm done with my summer. I'm driving back to Nashville to get fucked up for the first time in 3 months, you know, like, and then hearing that, it's like, oh my God, not only that, but now he's like trying to hassle me. Like, well, obviously we don't need these books. Like, you're going to have to come back and get them. And, you know, I'll dig through their stuff and find the receipt. And, you know, it was just like, what is happening? Like, is any of this real? Like, I was literally in the back of my mind thinking, like, did they stage this to get out of books? Like,
oh my God. It's like, oh shit, she's coming back. Let's go to Walmart.
Yeah, so everybody else landed in Nashville with this, like, we did it, we're done. And I was just like, I'm alive. Like, shit got weird at the end, you know?
I thought it was going to be the old lady. Plot twist. It did not come back full circle. Right? Yeah. It was the emo kid that was burning himself. Holy shit. Yeah. There's got to be an article of this somewhere. You know what time this was?
Yeah, I've tried to look it up. And I still have friends in Batesville, Mississippi that I've asked about it. And they're like, well, we didn't know them particularly. And I'm like, well, if it was in your county, like, you know, surely you've heard something. Like, but I never dug into it, actually. Like, I haven't really even thought about that situation in a long time. Like, just kind of buried it.
I told you
So
they come back. They always come back. Every time we do these episodes, people come up with stories on the fly because they're like, "Oh my god, I hadn't thought about that story in a long time." That's insane. That is probably one of the craziest delivery stories we've been. You were telling us some of the craziest stories we've had on the show, and we're 107 episodes in. That's like literally 400 or 500 hours of content, and this has got to be. We're an hour and 24 minutes in, and this is some of the wildest content.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to my second summer where I sold amongst the Amish.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So we will get there. And there's a Sizzler story, right? Or in there?
Yeah, Sizzler too. But so check out my first year though. Everybody was turning up. Like we got back to Nashville. Like I mean, it was like I felt like they had like a Patron fountain or something. Like
yeah, they do.
We were like just getting ratchet. And like UF was one of the first schools to start back. So we were one of the first schools to check out. So like we set the precedence there, you know? And and I had never had any tattoos. This is hilariously awful. I had never had any tattoos, but like this, you know, that experience was one of those things that like has you at this like pinnacle, you know, life experience, like being on the other end of it. Like I did it. I didn't, you know, quit. And I just made a $13,000 check. And, you know, so me and 3 friends went to, and I hope to God they're not watching this because I don't know if they ever figured this out or not, but me and 3 friends went to, and we were all first years in the same org, and 2 of them were walkers, so they went through much more hell than I did. And anyway, so we go to this tattoo parlor, and they were like, okay, we want to all get a tattoo together to signify, like, we did this. And so I think one of them came up with, like, the only way out is through, right? Like, we're not quitters. We did this thing. Or maybe I came up with it. I was like, we're looking up inspirational quotes about winning or something. And so I was like, yeah. Like, we were all like, yeah, let's do that. Let's get that on our bodies. And I was like, wait, let's get it in Latin.
Oh, no. First of all, you already have a tattoo. It's a scar left on your left ass cheek. What are you doing?
So I just put it into Google Translate.
Oh, no.
The only way out is through.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and then the 3 of them got it stenciled on their sex V, you know, like the hip, sexy little hip V thing. Yeah. So they all get it tattooed. It's my turn. I have the stencil. And then I don't know if I chickened out or like what, but they were like, you've drank too much. And like, I was like, good. Like, there's an excuse. I didn't want to do it anyway. Like, anyway, so we backed out. Well, later, I showed my friend who was Greek a picture of, and he's also a doctor. And I showed him like a picture of the tattoo that I almost got. And he was like, throughout the way inward, the.
Oh, no.
Like, I guess that is, or yeah, it like, it was like, it didn't make like sense, like where the words were put in the sentence, but it also almost sounded antithetical to like the point of it. And I was like, oh God, I hope that they never encounter anyone that knows like Latin.
That's brutal. It's a good thing it's a dead language. So maybe the old lady knows it now.
Yeah. Right.
Damn, dude. That's wild. Do you ever like wonder, like, you know, when you look back at those days, you're like, how the fuck did I get through that? Like, do you ever look back and go, what the hell was I doing? That's crazy that we did that, you know, or whatever. Like the experience. My God. Now, hang on a sec. Hold on. We got second summer stories in the Amish, which I want to get to. By the way, we got time. So, you know, the longest episode's 4 hours. Now, we're not trying to break that record, but this is fun. These are great stories. Make sure to save the better ones for the ponytails at the end. But
yes.
This, like, you're telling me there's stories that get better than this? This is crazy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is a great episode. I can't imagine. I'm out here like, what the fuck? This is crazy, man.
Sometimes I wonder too, like, did other people like not have like wild traumatic experiences like I did? Or did they just like not remember them? Like, I do have a really good memory, but like this stuff happened, you know, which is wild that like I can't be the only person that like was held at gunpoint or, you know, got bit by an animal or, you know, like had
No.
some wild like tensions inside of their HQs. I think that like I put a lot of bookmarks into memories that maybe other people don't. I don't know.
It's interesting because like here's the thing: we have 107 episodes. It's just that some like a lot of people have shared a lot of really crazy stories. So like as far as craziness, this is on par with like some of the craziest we've heard, if not probably in the top 5 or 6, right? Or because we're 107, but I think what happens is most people aren't as willing to share them, even though this is uncensored. Like they haven't really told these stories, and more than that, though, I think it's more the sometimes people don't want to remember that. I feel like they kind of like, and this might be kind of dark, but like that's some stuff that sometimes people bury that stuff and they don't really even think about it. They don't want to remember it, so their like brain kind of protects them. And then it's not until it's kind of like, and this is gonna sound shitty to say, but like someone who's been abused as a kid that like later on is 26 and goes to therapy for the first time, and in therapy they're like, holy shit, my uncle used to touch me or whatever the fuck, like, and you're like, that shit got buried, and so it doesn't come out until after like some trauma happens again, or they go and face that trauma, and so they forget. And it sounds dark, but it can be that way. But that's life. You know what I mean? That happens to everybody. And the fact that you were able to face it, I think, is what helps you like talk about it and remember it and share it, because you are more willing to deal with it. I think not that people are not willing to deal with it, but they just forget. They just don't mean to forget. But you're like, oh my god, yeah, that happened to me, right? Like I forgot, totally spaced it.
And like, with a lot of traumatic experiences that I've had in my life too, it like regurgitating what had happened. Like sometimes it almost feels like I'm telling like a play or a story or like somebody else's like life. It's like almost like I've disassociated from it, like so I can talk about it in almost like an emotionless or like even funny way, even though it was like really traumatic. Because it's like, oh, I mean, even though it happened to me, like, oh, that didn't happen to me. Like,
no,
does that make sense?
I understand. Oh, 100%. So this is my book. I've talked about this on the show a couple of times, but I've written a bunch of different stories that happened to my family when we moved here. So my family moved here because we were going to get murdered, right? It's the whole thing. Now, I say it casually because to me, it's like, yeah, of course, that's just what happened to me, right? It doesn't mean it's crazy or not crazy, or it's not to objectify or make it like simple or play it down. That's just what I have dealt with for 29 years of my life, and for you, it happened 10 years ago. So it's just as much of a memory as any childhood memory or anything, because it's so long. And so it sounds normal because that's just all you know. And those experiences shaped you in some way, right? They changed you. And so same as me, right? And so when you somebody once told me everybody's been through the hardest thing that they've ever been through.
Right.
And so then like to them, whatever that was is normal now, because that's just part of the journey that brought them to whatever the hell they're doing today. And that, like for you, like for me, I never had a murder case. I had some like for me, this story is probably just as wild, but in a different way. I was shit. I just remember this. I think I told the story before, but it was my first summer. I was at Greenwood, New York, and I was Greenville, whatever. I was driving, and you know how you drive and you're like, oh, that's a neighborhood I'm gonna have to come by, because you're like you already know where you're going at the beginning in the morning, but you're like, oh shit, there's like a whole different neighborhood down that road. I didn't even realize it. I'm just gonna keep driving. It's kind of like pockets. And I remember seeing like some houses. I'm like, oh man, that's great. That's a little cul-de-sac. I'm gonna have to come back and knock. And that was like on a Friday night or a Friday morning. So then on Monday, I'm gonna go break new territory, because Saturday you do gravy all day, so you don't really visit new territory. You just go to like callbacks. So on Monday, I'm like, I'm gonna go hit that house. And I get there, and there's all the houses were there except for the one, and it's just burned to the ground. Like it's just like left over. And I'm like, what happened to that house? And I knock, and the neighbors, I'm like, hey, yeah, my name's Andres, whatever. Oh, we're not interested. Okay, cool. Hey, sorry, quick question. What the hell happened over here? This house was standing last Friday when I saw it, and now it's like gone. And they're like, oh yeah, we've lived next to these people for like 20 years or something. I don't remember. For a while. And turns out they had a meth lab in there. And they like fucked up making the meth and burned it to the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Very,
and I
very
tell like,
drug.
yeah. And I'm just like, holy shit. He goes, yeah, they were neighbors. You've borrowed sugar from them before. Like, I'm like, are you sure it was sugar? But you know what I'm saying? Like, and I tell that story kind of funny now, but like one of them died in the fire. It was like,
Oh
whatever,
no.
you know, like, but
Oh.
to me, that's normal because that's just what I experienced. You know, you see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so like,
Yeah.
wow, but I never had a kid who murdered his stepmom and right.
Mhm.
Like I didn't have a vengeful Cinderella. You know what I'm saying? It was just like
Yeah, right?
it was just like, it was just what happened to me. But yeah, gone to the face, you know, the whole thing. And you tell people that didn't sell books this and they're like, holy shit. But like to us, it's like, well, yeah, sold in the sticks. That's what's going to happen sometimes. You knock on a door, you turn sideways, and you just hear, I'm at the wrong place. You know, I'll see you guys later or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So
Wait,
we decide.
one more first year story because
Yeah, I was gonna say, what else you got?
okay.
Give me some more.
And
This is great.
This could be a save for ponytails, but it's like on my mind right now. So, have you ever been sold? Have you ever been paid drug money for books?
Yes.
Like immediately, like drug deal into now
Not
I'll buy them.
immediately. Not
Yeah.
immediately, but I took the money and I'm like, there's no way that this isn't drug money. Because you know,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. There's a little section of Panola County, Mississippi. It's called like it starts with a P and it's something town. It's like Pivy Town or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but when other people heard that I knocked on those doors at night, they're like, "You did what?" Like people don't even go that way. Like, people just avoid that area completely, and you like knocked on the doors at night. Anyway, so there's like this one centralized crime area, and like it's where all the drugs come from, whatever. Like cops don't even go in that area. And so I go knocking on it at night, and there's like just a herd of people outside around like a bonfire, a burn barrel and stuff. And so I'm like, well, it'd be weird to approach all these people at night, and there's not very good lighting, so I'll go to this house, first. And so I go and knock on the door. The lady's like, little white girl, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hey, you got any kids? Like selling books, whatever. And so I sit down and I sold to like several of the moms, and she's like really into the demo, like, yeah, I like them books. I like them for my babies. I want them for them. I want them for them. And I'm like, good. She's giving me all these yes buying signs. And then at the very end, we even like I had her signed up in the order pad. She goes, but I ain't got no money. And I was like, well, like, we could just do half right now. She goes, no, I don't have any money. And I was like, okay, well, what about just shipping? I have to, your neighbors down the road bought, so I have to come back anyway. All I need to do is cover the $9 shipping. I ain't got no money. And I was like, okay, well, maybe if I've got extra books at the end of the summer, I'll come back. And she goes, no, I done said I want them. And I'm like, am I about to get like held up for books that like I don't even have on my person yet? Like I literally won't have them until the end of the summer. So like she's like, and I'm just trying to understand what she means by like I don't have any money, but I said I want the books. Like, anyway, and people do take zeros down, but when I had sold, I mean, I was selling so much that it didn't make sense for me to sell zeros. I would just mark them on my map and I would come back by if I thought that they might buy or whatever at the end of the summer. So anyway, so finally, like, and she was starting to get kind of aggressive about it. And I'm like starting to pack up my sample case. And the window was plexiglass, tinfoil, and duct tape. And like she like did a special knock on the door, and then somebody put their hand through the window, like through the duct tape tinfoil, and like handed her a wad of cash. And she said, "So you said $96.95?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she paid me. Like she had something in her hand and handed it off. Like did a special knock, handed it off, and then he like put the money through. And it was just like, like I mean, it's for education. So, like, yeah, but it was like drug deal right then. And she's like, I don't have any money. And then had money magically. It was really weird. Um, and that was very much at nighttime. And then, it was kind of in a secluded area. So I never went down there again until I went to deliver in the daytime. And I was like, oh my God, like, they tell you to knock on every single door, but had I come during the daytime, like I mean, there was just like shot up barrels everywhere. And like, you know, the children's swing set outside was just a shit ton of old tires that like had been barbed wired together. Like it, it was like there was tied up like on a line. There was like pit bulls everywhere. Like it was just like what am I doing here? But they paid in full, so I knocked a couple of times and dropped the bucks and ran off. So, yeah.
Not a doctor's house.
Yeah, and I had been told at this point, like, you do not go there. Like, so, yeah.
But here's the thing: when they tell you not to go there, you're like,
oh no, yeah, like yeah,
I'm going right over there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I love that. You still came back after all this. I can't believe that.
Yeah, so at the end of my first summer, I was like, me and Chelsea both, we were like, we got through it, but like we are changed, and like, you know, we did it, we finished. 0% chance whatsoever that we're coming back to sell at all, period. Not doing it, like, you know. And then somehow Mark Rao and our exit interviews like did some sort of brain sorcery, and like we both came out of the room like with our like intent letters signed, and I'm like, how did that happen? I'm like, I went in there like, never again, you can't make me, like, you know. And like and everyone was like, he got you too, huh? Like
he's got away with words, man. He's got the eagle eye. He's got the eagle eye, and you're like, I gotta go.
He also did this really like big assumptive selling. Like, hey, you did a great job. You know, I've got really big plans for you next year. You know, like I want you to bring out a team. You know, he told me about the structure for management, all of this. And I'm just like, like, not for me. And then somehow by the end of it, he had me like all switcherooed.
All up in there,
and he did it twice. I sold 3 summers. Like, how did that happen? I feel finagled. He handled me.
Do you feel like you sold one summer too many? I feel like I did.
I sold 3 summers too many. No, the first one, like.
I never wanted to do it.
The second and third summer, a lot of the magic was gone. You know, like a lot of this, like, what am I getting myself into? Adventure and challenge. But because I brought recruits, like I had to be a man of my word, you know? So like I feel like that's kind of the whole like dust and mirrors with the second summer. It's like they really want you to bring out at least 1 to 2 recruits or so, because like that kind of has you on the hook, you know, because at this point you're affecting other people's summers too. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, some people for sure they should totally come back, and then some people should not come back. And I feel like that has probably been the biggest like reflection I've made when I think back on my time. It's like, man, like there are some people that we recruited either the first time or some people that came back after their first summer that I thought to myself, yeah, you shouldn't have come back. Like this is not a healthy option for you. And I feel like some of us knew that, and we just, you know, we need another manager. And I always think back, I'm like, man, if I ever pressured someone into coming back when they probably shouldn't have, I am eternally sorry, because, you know, that could be a really fuck up for some people. That could really fuck someone up. On the other hand, there's people that I brought out that at first I was unsure about, and it turns out it was actually a good call to believe in them, because they actually, you know, they'll still message me to this day and thank me, like, hey, you know, I sold 1 summer and I'm super thankful all the experience. So it's like hard to say, you know, at the time you think you're doing what's best for people, but you know, because again, look, if you think back, even if you had a shit experience afterwards and you think like you're probably right, you probably should have only sold the 1 summer. I don't know. But you look back and you're like, I'm not mad at the person that recruited me. You're not mad at your manager, you know, because you look back and that was a good experience overall. Like,
right.
Positive, right?
Right.
Could have been better.
Yeah, and you can blame your manager for the first summer, like getting you out there, but subsequent summers, like that's on you, you know?
Yeah. Nobody's holding a gun to your head.
Right. I mean, they did.
People who are good at sales.
not
the people that want you to come back. Yeah.
Right.
That's for sure. All right. So you hit Sizzler. Now, is this Sizzler a ponytail story? Is this Sizzler like a we could do it here? Because we could always save it for the end.
Okay. I'll just tell one first Sizzler story. So
and then there's a crazy Sizzler story too. There's like another one.
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
This is the tame one.
Okay. Sizzler story is always like, oh
yeah,
shit,
so
turn the lights on, everybody.
So we get
If you're
there.
watching at home.
Yeah, so we get there and you know, we're just getting drunk on like not real alcohol. It's like grain ethanol alcohol, like in this 5-star resort, you know, Grand Oasis. So in Cancun. And so Mark Rao, he has 2 daughters, and they were young. I mean, now they're like graduated college. It's like hard to fathom. Like Melanie remembers when they were like little girls, you know. And so at this Sizzler, they were like, Mark had his whole family there, which he didn't bring them all every summer, but and his older daughter Kelsey was playing volleyball like AAU at the time. I think she was 15, and then his younger daughter was like 10 or so. And so Raul was really into volleyball at the time, and every year at Sizzler, what he would do is he would like pick who he thought was the most athletic people and like put them, like choose them for his team on the volleyball tournament. But like he would volley with them beforehand and see if they were good or not, right? So he picks all of these like tall characters or whatever, and I'm like 5'2", but I'm scrappy, you know. So like I was like, let me show you Raul. So I was like, you know, diving for him and spiking and whatever. And this is like, we haven't even played yet. And there was this like 6-summer bookman that was like really tall, really long. Like he assumedly had large privates, and it's me, Raul, and his 2 daughters, and he goes to dive for a ball, and his pants just split, like his swim shorts just split wide open, and this like donkey slong like falls out, and Raul just like dives on his daughter's eyes to like, and he's still trying to get the ball, like, yeah, and he's just like, oh no. And then he was like, all right, girls, like he made his wife like take him back to the hotel room. He like to like cleanse their palates or something, I don't know, but
oh no.
Yeah, so that happened.
Last time Raul brought his daughters.
Yeah, and then that manager was the most popular guy for the rest of Sizzler.
Yeah, everybody wanted to hang out with him on Sizzler.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, or whoever. Tom, come drink some more, Ekmer. Oh.
Right.
The next day, all the girls brought out their smallest bikinis. Damn, that's a tame one?
That's the tame one.
There's a donkey schlong, and that's the same one. Oh, boy. The next one better not include names, because I feel like those people are going to be like...
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shit. All right, so Amish country. Let's move move into second summer. We still got some stories to tell.
I'll be quick on this one. So,
no. Listen, take your time. I just want to make sure I'm like getting all your stories, and it could be recruiting stories, get back stories. I mean, any part of the experience you can share. Man.
Yeah. So this one story, this is probably my weirdest interaction with the Amish. So I speak a little bit of German, but like not like Pennsylvania Dutch. Like there's a lot of cognates between English and German. So I would basically just say it was Crittenden County, Kentucky. And I had, 3 first years in my HQ. And so they specifically gave me this Amish area because like I spoke a little bit of German and, like they also spoke English, but German is a first language. And like their kids only go to like school up until 8th grade before they do trades and stuff. And so you really have to like get those first couple of power names in the Amish community and really push the family Bible library series. Like if you can get those sanctioned by the bishop, then everybody will buy them because they have so much money, very little expenses.
It's a fire sale.
What?
It's a fire sale. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
At that point.
Right. So, but it was my first few days selling in Amish country because like only half of my county was Amish and I sold English. Like I sold the first, so English is to the Amish. That's anything not on the like Amish community is considered English, even if it's a Mexican family or whatever they may be. So I sold the English part of the county first to, try to get some names because other people in Kentucky, Sean Davis and stuff were like cracking with the Amish and he had like kind of given me that angle. Like, try to get a few names before you go in, because if they like, you know, clam up on you, then like that'll like domino effect. So anyway, long story short, I've finished my English, all my gravy in my English, and I'm going to knock on my Amish doors for the first time. And also it was kind of hard to tell, because like between the English and the Amish communities, there was what are they called? Mennonites. So Mennonites dress like the Amish, but they can have landlines and they can drive cars. But you know, so it's like there's like a soft middle.
And I think it's important to explain this because I sold in Pennsylvania, so I understand what you're talking about. But for people listening who maybe even book people who maybe never even experienced the territory, like when you see a sign on the road and it says horse and buggy, and you're like, what? And then you see literally you have to go around someone who's like riding in a horse and buggy. You're like, what the fuck am I in like right now? So Mennonites are just like Amish, like you said. They are allowed to use some technology. So they believe all the same things religiously as far as like how their family structures are and the religious structure are, but like they have cell phones. They don't have a computer. They don't have like a iPhone. They'll have like a good old flip phone. They'll drive one car and then like have a phone and electric lighting. Amish people straight up nothing, like just like they candle lights for the lamps at home, no technology, maybe some cell phones at this point in time now in 2022, but back then especially.
Oh yeah,
I know it sounds like a long time, like it's back then like I'm aging myself, but no, for real. 2012 when I sold up in upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania, yeah, we're talking like straight up just nothing. And they have multiple it's like a weird family structure. It's like a straight, not weird, I don't mean to be judgmental, it's just a different kind of structure, and it's hard for people who don't or are not aware of it to really like understand, like because you know they always tell you, okay, bring the mom and the dad, and you'd be like, oh, is your wife home? And they'd be like, yeah, and then like 3 women would come and like all the other 14 children, and you're like, okay, like what do I do? So that's the vibe we're talking about. Like straight up, no electricity. They're looking at your car going, this is a spaceship. Like this is bananas. Although they've seen cars, but it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but they had the best bread and butter and small engine repair
Architecture,
and
it's insane.
woodworking, like
They're amazing.
yeah,
And
they're very like they have skilled families that like they pass down these trades, and
yeah,
so you kind
and
of have
when
to
they
pivot there. You can't sell education, you got to sell Bibles, you know.
yes, and
So.
when you get to 8th grade, you get to go into the trades to learn what you're going to do for your life. There is a point. I don't know if this was. I don't know if this is across all Amish communities, but some of the ones I sold in, and then also some Mormon communities that I sold in sometimes, where like you get a year to go and live in the rest of the world to see what the world is like, and then you can choose to go be a part of that world or go back home and work your craft. Some places are like that.
It's called
Different.
Rumspringa, and
Yeah.
I got propositioned so many times by boys on their Rumspringas, like because I was like the one
Me
hot
too.
stranger lady, like God sent me to take their virginities during their Rumspringa.
Is this a ponytail story? Are you going to tell us a
No,
story where you
that's
sold some family
just
Bible
a snippet.
libraries?
That just happened way too often. Like, and they would just ask, you know, because like they didn't know English ladies or how to court you or anything. Like, you know, it's during my Rumspringa. Can we have sex? Like, can I make
And
sex with you?
you're
Like,
like, it's week 9. It's been a
yeah.
minute. You
Hey,
thought about
right?
it?
I got
No,
my
I
book
can't.
goggles
Yeah, you got your book goggles.
no,
Book
but
goggles are
and
for
I
real.
mind you, I was 19 at the time, so or no, I was 20. This is my second summer. So I mean, these kids are like typically it's from 16 to 18 or 17 to 18, like that they do this, but only the boys did it in this area, which was weird to me. That like the girls didn't get the opportunity to sow their wild oats. But anyway, so I just finished selling my English, and I was transitioning to the Amish and the Mennonites, and I had some names, whatever. And I had a first year behind me because I had a first year behind me almost every day, second and third summer. And I had these white like beach material pants, like white linen pants on, because it got really hot in the South in the summer selling books. And so me in the first year ran up to this house that like you couldn't tell if it was abandoned or not. There was also a car out front, but it also looked abandoned. But like the grass was like thigh high. So I'm like, let's run it, because you want to really play by the book when someone's following you. So I'm like, let's go knock just to say we did. So we run up to the house, we knock. Nobody's there, knock a few times. And I'm like, I tell her I'm just going to X this one out because really doesn't look lived in, whatever. If I ever see the lights on, I'll pop back in, not discount, whatever. So we get back in my car, we get back on the highway, and I look down and I thought like there was black stuff, like black little dots all over my pants, my white pants. But I thought that it was just like Indian grass, the little black like dots or whatever. But then Kaylee was like, Naomi, those are moving. And I looked down and I realized they were all moving. And so I slammed on brakes in the middle of the highway and I jump out of the car and I realized that they're deer ticks, like seed ticks, covering my pants. So I just pull my pants off and I'm like trying to shake them out. But then I realized they're all over my legs too. So now I'm having to pick them off and I bite my nails, or I did at the time. So I didn't have any fingernails. So I'm like, Kaylee, pick, pick them off. So we're like trying to get hundreds of ticks off of me. And then it was like, I'm in underwear, like not very classy underwear in the middle of the road. And the horse and buggy goes by. So I like put my ass up to the car, like, and we're 40 minutes from her car because we left her car so she could follow me and stuff. And so like there's no stores around here to like buy, pants or whatever. And I was like, oh, you know what, Kaylee? I was like, yesterday or the day before, I sold to this really nice mom right up the road. I said, let's drive up there and you can get out and tell her that Naomi, the book girl, needs some pants. And, her name's Miss Jones, whatever. So I'm looking at my map, but I'm also still disturbed and like in underwear in Amish country driving and like getting itchy, like, and just freaking out and stuff. So we drive up to the house that I think is the house that bought from me, because a lot of these houses are structurally the same. There's like the Amish built a lot of the houses for the English, like too, So a lot of the houses like have this same farmhouse, 2-story flat, look. And so I pull up to what I think is the house that bought from me. And she goes and knocks on the door as and then a horse and buggy pulls up. And they're like, the dad gets out and he's like leaning over into my car, realizes that I'm not wearing pants, even though I'm trying to cover myself. And then I look up and I realize Kaylee's at the door trying to ask, Naomi, the book girl, she needs, pants. And I realize that it's like this really skinny Amish woman. And I'm like, oh no, this is not the house. Like there's a clothesline, like there's people in the field. I'm like, this is not the house. And I'm like, Kaylee, abort mission. And so Kaylee's also really skinny. And so finally, Kaylee, like, she at least got what she came for. She needed pants. Well, they couldn't give a girl pants, so they had to give me a skirt. But the first skirt she runs over with is like a size 00. I'm like, which leg do I put this on? Like this isn't gonna work for me. So Kaylee had to run back to the door and tell her that. And the lady told her she said that they had some cousins visiting from Pennsylvania, and she had left a skirt there. So she comes back in the skirt, and also Kaylee and this other skinny lady trying to size up how big I am. Like, is she yay big, or is she yay big, or is she yay big? And like, I'm just like waving, but I can't get out of the car to shit because I wasn't wearing pants. Anyway, so Kaylee comes back with the only big skirt that they had, and I swear to God, it was like 4 feet, like in radius. Like it was just like, but it was, that's what I put them on. We knocked on 2 more houses and I got pants at the next one. But like, so my next few approaches were just holding my skirt and my sample case, like, like holding it in a bunch. I used a hair tie to just like double it over and yeah.
Like a boss. Pantsless in Amish country. That's a book title.
But
right
what
there.
I was so scared of was this is inadvertently my first Amish house, and I'm pretty sure that the dad saw me pantsless. So like, you know, is this going to make the whole community clam up? Like, did this crazy white girl, like, you know, just come like shit on their like whole rituals and stuff, you know?
It's all there to see.
Right.
You can see your scar. You can, so if you look right, you can see your scar.
Right.
That's how crazy it could have been.
So that's summer number 2. Oh, and also summer number 2 was in Kentucky, and we had a lot of tornado warnings, and I just felt so horrible for. We had a first year Cicacia that was a walker, and I would drop her off in her territory every morning and pick her up every night. Some nights her phone had died. It was and people wouldn't let her in to charge her phone, and so there were some nights that I really just had to drive around and find her, and her feet, like by the second or third week of the summer, we had to keep buying her new tennis shoes because like they got flatter and wider from walking 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. And like, it was just wild that her feet literally grew or flattened out or whatever it was. And, but it was wild too, that like there was, because I mean, people were just meaner in cities and more desensitized to salesmen and stuff. And like, that's really all that you can work is cities and suburbs when you're walking. And the other thing is like, you can try to do pre-approach on a territory, like before you go sell there. But the reality is as a walker, you don't know what you're getting into. And it might be miles before the next, you know, subdivision or whatever. And so anyway, so I would, and also I had to drop her off and then drive to my territory. So like, I couldn't spend too much time like cherry picking neighborhoods with her. So long story short, I felt so bad because I like found her in a culvert one time, like at the end of a day, because there had been a touchdown of a tornado. All the sirens had gone off and no houses would let her in. And so she had to like get in a tunnel, and like she just stayed there until the end of the day. And like somehow I found her in a tunnel. It was wild.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal, man.
I could not have walked, like, period. No. I know that.
Being from Nebraska, I totally get that. Like we get tornadoes there. I mean, I'm probably not as crazy as some of the Bible Belt area in the Kentucky area, like the South, but we get some straight up tornadoes in Estonian cell in Nebraska. And to them, a lot of them tell those stories where it's like, holy shit, you could see the tornado coming for a while, you know, like just crazy stories like that. Damn, dude, Amish territory and tornadoes. That's what your second summer. That's what you want. Those are, these, by the way, these have been prime stories. You're doing this is so fun. I am having a blast. The thing about this show is that this is what it's about. It's about some fun stories and some crazy experiences. Man, gosh darn it. You got more from your second, or do we need to shake it up? What's on your list? How many do you have?
Okay, one more from my second.
Hell yeah. Do it. Let's do it.
So I recruited my brother and my second summer, among other people, but so Sam, like, I love him to death, but like even to this day, he's like an excuse maker. You know, like he's been really good at everything he's ever done his whole life, like without having to try or work hard. So like this was just, and I made him like pinky promise and stamp it that he was not going to quit. Like, brother, if I make a spot for you on my team and bring you out, you are not quitting. Like you're finishing. So like we had this, you know, agreement, and I knew that he was off schedule like from the beginning, because he was like saying, I mean, he wasn't going back to the HQ or anything, but he was like saying that he was doing, you know, 30 approaches a day and, you know, 12 to 15 sit downs a day and just like zeros, you know, and it's like it's your productivity is not supporting like your work stats that you're reporting, you know, and I like didn't want to call him a liar at all, but like, you know, so finally, and I was cranking my second summer. So finally he like drove his truck off of the road, and I was like, look, brother, I'll pay for your truck to get fixed. Like either, you know, you're going to have to get it fixed, whatever. So I was like, I'll drive across Kentucky. I'll put and this is like week 3. And I think he's sold like 150 units total in like the first 3 weeks, and I'm crushing it. So I'm like, look, brother, I will take a day off from my territory. I will drive to your territory. You go ahead and put your truck in the shop. I was like, we'll drive around your territory. you can watch me sell in your territory using your names, and like let me see if you just can't sell the books, like if it's definitely your territory, because he just kept saying nobody's buying here, nobody's buying, whatever. So his car's in the shop. I freaking left my HQ at 3 a.m. so I could pick him up and get our first knock by 7:35, 7:50, whatever. And we start knocking, and by noon I had sold like 75 units in his territory with his names that he later told me half were fake. So I was like, faking these names, and like just the nicest people. Come on in, Shug. Like it was Bardstown, Kentucky. So it was like where they make Evan Williams or one of those like liquors or whatever. And so I'm like, you know what, Sam? Like, I think that I've proven that you can sell. Like, and he's like, well, I don't know what it is then. So I followed him from noon on. The first, like, so so we could figure out like maybe it's something in his technique or in his sales talk or whatever, or his approach, or I don't know, something. So the very first house that like I then follow him on, because he's like, Naomi, I don't know what's happening. Like this isn't how it is for me every day. Yada yada yada. So I'm like, all right, you do it. You show me what's happening. So we run out up to this like log cabin looking house out in the woods in Kentucky, and it's this mom, like very conservative, like right wing mom. It's like trying to load her 5 youngins, like homeschools kids, into the minivan. And he approaches and he's like, hi, Miss Jones, my name's Sam, whatever, does his approach. And she's like, oh, well, we're headed to choir practice. She's like, but, what kind of books? And so he just does a really quick demo. He puts the sample case down. So she's out the door. This is just like minivan side demo. And he's like, well, it's 3rd grade all the way to high school. We've got math, social studies, history. It was a really shitty demo, which again proves to me that he wasn't doing he wasn't doing enough, or he would know the script. And he's like, all right, and how much are they? And he's like, because at this point he's like, whoa, she's serious. How much are they? And he's like, he does the price build up and he says they're $600. And she goes, do you take cash? And he's just like, he stops and he looks at me and he looks at her like I'm in on it. She goes inside, gets $600 bills, and we had to she had to take off with the kids. So we're still in their driveway, like filling out the order pad as she's left. And Sam is like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And I was like, you've been lying to me. Your territory is gold. Like, you have just been lying through your teeth. And he was like, Naomi, you sprinkled some magic sauce. Like, something's happening. Something's in the air. Like, he's like, maybe I got through all the no's so that we could get all the yeses today. And I'm just like, damn, we didn't cherry pick shit, like, anyway. But it was just like, yeah, like $600. Do you take cash? And it was like a 5-minute, like, drop the bag kind of sale. And so we ended up selling, like, I hit a stake, and then he sold like, I don't know, like 50 units or so, 60 units that day. So by the end of the day, when we went back to his HQ, because I was going to stay the night with the boys there and then leave, go back to my territory in the morning. But by the end of that day, we had sold more, he and I, together in that day, that he had sold collectively in his first 3 weeks. And we took, like, I gave him all the money to get his truck fixed. And, like, I was like, Sam, stop making excuses. Like, your territory is gold. Literally just go do the damn thing. Knock on the doors. Like, knock on the doors, And he did, like, I don't know, maybe 12 to 1,500 units that summer. So, like, he finished the summer. I think he lollygagged most of the time. But, and the funniest part was at the end of the day, we get back to his HQ, and he kept saying, are we going to go to Publix, or are we going to go to Walmart? Are we going to go to Piggly Wiggly's? And finally, we get back to his HQ, and I'm like, Sam, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, where is Rao going to buy us the steak? Like, he thought when you hit steak, like, you buy steak. Like,
First years. You
Yeah.
know, what are you gonna do?
Where do
By
we
the
get the
way,
steak?
if you're listening, steak means that you hit 100 units for the day. At least that's what I meant in the force. Is that what
Yes.
you guys
Yeah.
also call?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we actually my first summer we did have like, so our manager was like, if you hit steak, you're just gonna get this big old piece of jerky, and that was kind of like the reward. It's
Yeah,
like,
we had
you
nothing
know,
physical attached to it.
you know how you know. Well, it was our idea. I don't know that any other HQs did it at the time. I'm sure other people do now, but it was clever because you know how they tell you you're not supposed to share units. Like, don't say how many units you sold that day because it's like bad, and then other first years
Mhm.
get down. So like, if you sold a lot and then like your roommate didn't sell that much, it could actually like make it worse for them because they feel like they're not that good or whatever. But so what we did is all that meant that is if you sold 100 units, you get to go into the fridge when you get home and eat the piece of steak. You never got to share exactly how many you sold, but it just meant that you were at least over 100. So it was actually kind of fun because you show home, you know, you go into the fridge, all your roommates, they hadn't eaten any steak, and you just like, this is you know, because they know that you were at least over 100. You don't really know, you know. And
Yeah.
so it was
Yeah.
like, and I had 275 unit days, and so I was like, all right. So then I went and grabbed two, and I was like, I don't know. And they're like, oh, what the fuck? It was just a funny like way of like still sharing but not making it negative. So that's positive. But your brother thought you actually went and got steak and got to like,
Yeah, where
first
is
years.
Mark sending our steak? Like, does he reimburse us for it?
Pumpkin.
Okay, one more
Pumpkin.
story about that HQ. So it was Sam and another first year, and ironically, the manager that I had smoked out, like that went crazy. My first summer, he was Sam's like in-house manager of his HQ, and like he also, that was his third summer, and he had lost steam by that point. But like, at least nobody was so off schedule that they were coming back to the HQ. You know, they were at least like watching Netflix on their phone or something. Like, you
Yeah.
know, they weren't coming home. But anyway, so one day they were playing the trade up game. So Evan, I don't think you'll mind me saying his name. Evan Addington was the other first year with Sam in their HQ. Oh, and their host dad was a like super alcoholic, and they were like in the same town with the liquor factory, like the whiskey. It was like the home of like Jim Beam or something like that, and Kentucky bourbon. And yeah, and so they were playing the trade up game, and they were like all going to compare at the end of the night at the HQ like what they had won. So like, and for those who don't know, the trade up game is you start with something of like little to no value. Like I think Sam started with a golf ball and Evan started with like a number 2 pencil. And then throughout the day, you like trade for, you trade the golf ball for, um, whatever, right? You just, whatever the mom wants to give you, you trade up. Well, at the end of the day, I think Sam had like a catcher's mitt or something, like a nice one-in-one. But Evan ended the day and he traded for like the wildest shit all day long. Like at one point he had like a car jack and he traded that for a sawed-off shotgun. So that's what he ended the day with in Kentucky.
Win.
A sawed-off shotgun. Like, yeah. And so at the end of the day, this manager and Sam and Evan are all comparing what they got, and they were like, and then the HQ dad was like, "Oh, what is it, y'all?" And so they're kind of in the doorway to his room, and he was like, "But they said it don't work, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, look how rusty this thing is. It couldn't possibly." And he pulls the trigger, and it shoots through the host dad's bed, like blew a hole in it like this.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And so the worst part is the host dad made Sam and Evan move that mattress from his room. He made them switch mattresses so that they woke up every morning with their asses touching in the hole. And their house didn't have AC either. So
Brutal.
like, yeah, so they're knocking on doors all day, coming home hot, not always showering, and then waking up like swamp ass to swamp ass. And he made Evan pay for a new mattress.
Even though he shot the
made
gun?
him give him the money for any mattress and made him sleep in the shotgun one.
That's some bullshit. It was his fault anyway. But that's
Yeah.
a badass reward. You got a weapon, a golf ball turned into it's a magic trick.
Yeah,
Golf
he had the
ball
pencil,
turned
but
into
a pencil to a sawed-off shotgun. Yeah.
That ended up being a hole in a mattress. That's crazy. He could have killed someone.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
God damn. You got some wild, almost dead stories.
Yeah, I mean that one wasn't mine, but I doubt that Sam's ever going to be on here. So.
Never know. But we definitely got to get the guy who's in Birmingham. We got to go find that human.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's epic, dude. You got to love the Bookfield. Almost got shot by a shotgun. Dead lady or barely dead lady with flies. Teenager turned into a Criminal Minds episode. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. You got some crazy stories.
Yeah.
My God. And we're not even to the ponytails yet. This is
right. I'm saving the best for last.
So like we're leveling up. This episode's gonna go from good to great. Like
yeah.
And it's already great. Like, oh my God. Sweet baby Jesus. So what comes next?
So third summer.
Oh yes.
So third summer. Yes.
Where are you at this summer?
Third summer I'm in Indiana.
Oh baby, getting further north.
Yes. And
Yahoo.
So I had met someone after my second summer checkout. And we you trade contact info with people, whatever. And he went to IU in Bloomington, Indiana. And so then
is that another book guy? Or
another book guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wes Linetti was his name. But anyway, God, like pulling things out, like how did I remember that? But anyway, so he went to IU. He was like a 6 summer bookman, something like that. And then so my sales school, my third year, when we get assigned Indiana, and my territory is subsequently, and the girls with me is like that Bloomington and surrounding areas. So I reached out to him and he was like, yeah, actually, we're paying for my college apartment through the summer. So you could just pay me. And it was like, awesome. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in the blocks from the university. So that could have been tricky. But, and so it was me and 4 girls in this 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. But the thing is, I don't think that he told his roommates that he was subleasing the place because we all collectively split just his third of the rent. So I guess the other 2 people whose rooms were there, we weren't paying their rent, And so we tried to secure housing for this group of boys that had counties not far from us, but they just couldn't get housing. They had housing for a week, they got kicked out of it. Super nice guys, and 2 of them, or one of them was my first year too. And so eventually we ended up moving all 4 of them into our HQ with us. So we had 4 girls and 4 guys, all rookies but me and one other male manager, in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. So the cold showers were cold showers. You have 25 seconds to be in and out, Yeah, and so we had this mega HQ, and so we were 2 to a room, except for the living room. There were 2 in the living room too, and also the problem with having that many people in one HQ is that you have to drive further and further to your territory, as the summer continues, and then so the landlord also lived in the apartment building. His name was Charlie Running Horse. He was Chinese though, and when he did not like or understand when us girls first moved in, but he barely he didn't know they were subleasing. There was no agreement. He didn't even know if the other boys knew about it, which we didn't know they didn't. Whatever, but because we were quiet and in and out, we only slept there really. He didn't give us any shit. But then when 4 more dudes Like there's 8 cars now in the parking lot, like 8 additional cars because there's 8 of us in that house or in that apartment. And anyway, so he starts like, positive fuss, but he spoke, I can't remember if it was Mandarin or Cantonese, but we had a shy first year named Harrison, who his first language was either Cantonese or Mandarin. And so he, on a daily basis, talked Charlie running horse into letting us stay. And like in his language, like, yeah. And so we got to like stay living there and stuff, but like one of the final straws that I don't know how he talked our way out of it, but we had a competition that day where there was a lot of turtles crossing the road in Indiana. So the competition for that day was to see who could come home with the most turtles, which in hindsight is like not very fair to the animals to like take them out of their like, homes or whatever. But at the time, it's like we're saving them from the road,
That was a Finding Nemo moment, but turtles.
Yeah, but the problem is there were 8 of us, and we ended up with like 30 something turtles. Like my first year won, and he had like 12 turtles like alone.
What the fuck were you guys?
Yeah, and so like we had turtle races in the living room. Like we like tied colored yarn to whoever all your turtles were, because we were like, okay, well, it's not fair that Ryan has 12 and I only have 6. So it's like, oh, but mine are faster. And, like, so anyway, so we raced these turtles. And so the next day we were going to like return the turtles, like our colored turtles, to their respective counties so that they weren't like, because you can't really release them in a city. They wouldn't make it. No. But the next morning, something happened where we had to like leave early. So all of these turtles were still in the apartment. And I guess we didn't know that Charlie had a key. And so we all come home at the end of the day and all of the turtles are missing. Oh, and so shit. Like we assumed that like someone else had like within our group, but finally at the very end of the night, we get to the bottom of it that Charlie must have come in and taken all the horses or all the turtles. And so we're like, oh no. And so lo and behold, like Charlie tries to kick us out again. Harrison has to talk him down in Cantonese. And like I think he made soup out of a lot of them, like is what it boiled down to. Get it? Boiled down to?
Oh, he made soup out of the damn.
Yeah, well, I mean, we really think that's what happened because, yeah. So,
what the fuck?
But here's the funny
part.
This
thing I've ever heard of an HQ store, man. This is wild.
Here's the funny part, though. So, this apartment was unfurnished, right? And so then, like that night, no, actually, like a week later. I keep hearing something rustling around in the room, and it's me and another girl on air mattresses, and I keep hearing something rustling around. I turn the lights on, I don't see anything, whatever. I lay back down, and then like I hear a popping noise, and she wakes up, and a turtle had been hidden in our closet for so like, and it had come out and it had bit her air mattress and popped it. And we were like, oh my God, there's one turtle. There's one turtle left, and it's been a week and a half. So we named him Escape, and she kept that turtle for like forever. I mean, she took it to check out with her. She like probably still has it. Like, I mean, it'd be an old turtle. Turtles live a long time. But anyway, Escape, he became our like mascot, but we also had to hide him because we didn't want Charlie to find him. So we like made him a pen with like some driftwood, and like we found out what turtles actually eat, and like we made him a house turtle. But Escape.
Escape, the domesticated turtle, and which is funny enough because Escape is a big word in Finding Nemo. So you literally Finding Nemo'd him.
Yeah.
It's like almost full circle. It's like almost it's an oval. That's how. So she still has him to this day?
I haven't talked to her in 10 years, but I should get up with her. She was this really dope girl, like just this really eccentric character. I think it was at checkout, she shaved her head behind her ear and got a tattoo of Where's Waldo peeking out, waving. So like when her hair grew back, after her hair grew back, she would move her like, Where's Waldo? And it's like him hidden in her hairline, like, hey.
That's gonna be funny when she's 70 and it's like Waldo's just always there.
Right. I mean, you have to find him. You have to like look through her hair to see him. But
Oh
anyway.
man. You guys,
Her name was Kara. She was a brilliant character.
You guys, you Eagle Blitz folks just get down in a
Yeah,
way.
a lovely bunch of weirdos.
y'all are some wild childs.
Right?
Wild childs. Oh my gosh. My God, these are the craziest stories I've heard. Like, we need to write a book with these. This is the funniest.
Oh yeah, I need a book.
Yeah, you need to get one of these. Get
a book story book.
Have everybody type out a story, and then my God, murder, birthday disappointments, turtle soup, donkey slongs. Man, this has been I mean, I don't even know. Like, all of that has been in the last 2.5 hours. Like, that's a content. You can't ask for better content. This is like,
thank you. I'm hilarious. I told you.
Yeah, this is fucking awesome, man. I'm about it. This is the fucking funniest thing. So how did you decide it was time to go? How did you decide it was, unless you wait,
so
if you
my
got more
third
summer
summer,
stories,
my third summer, I actually only sold the first half of the summer. And then the second half of the summer, I did a law internship in Destin, Florida. So it was like, and I sold like a good amount of books in that first half, and left my team in a good place and like whatever. But I think that like doing something else productive that was like more in alignment with what I wanted to do with my future, like reminded me that there's like a summer world out there outside of books, because it becomes like a very like container mindset, like books is the only thing to do in the summer, especially when it's your third one. But like it wasn't quitting, because like when I signed up for my third summer, I told Rao, like, I have to do, this internship to find out, like, do I want to go into real estate, or, what kind of law I want to go into. And I've already got this lined up, as a paralegal and whatever. And he was like, he still convinced me to have it approved with the lawyer to like only do half of the summer and like with them. And so I sold books half of the summer, and then I did that internship. And then like after that, I helped my DSM boyfriend at the time recruit. And then like a couple of those people would have been under me, like as their manager, but I just like let him do all of the training and stuff, and then like didn't sell again. Like I had no intentions to sell again, but like, once they get their hooks into you, so like I literally had to like put teammates under him and stuff, but yeah.
Damn, so you knew it was time to go. That's, you said something that was peculiar. Listen, if you're listening to this and you're still selling books, like, that's okay. Do it until you need to, until you feel like you have to. No shame. But there is something about after you leave and you kind of experience, especially when you experience, like you said, when you experience something productive outside, you're like, oh, there's more to life than this. There's more stuff out there that I can explore and learn. So I think, pun intended, I think that there's like a curtain pulling open that you see, and you're like, ah, shit, and then you start kind of seeing the cracks, right? That you're just like, oh, this internship is amazing, but it's really not perfect. And you start kind of understanding like who you are, and things come into more perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you see a lot behind the curtain too, with like upper management and stuff, like because your first summer, you're really idolizing anyone who's made it through a first summer. So second, third year managers, DSMs, OLs, like everybody, you're like just seeing everyone with these rose-colored glasses. And then after a season of recruiting and then being a manager, like, and being asked to manage in a way that was questionable too, like there were certain things that like you got to play by the rules, but it's like it didn't feel internally good to me. And so like, I don't know, it was just, I'm glad that I did it. I don't think the third summer was necessary. I have some good stories, but I felt such relief finishing I think it was 7 weeks, and like driving to the other internship. I was just like, oh my God, I'm done, and I'm done forever. Like I had to go back up and deliver, but
right at the end of the summer.
yeah. And that's when you know that you've made the right decision about something, is like when you feel like, really validated and like relieved, like when you're transitioning out of it.
Right. But you do find that like there's certain like relationships that you thought were more strong, but it turns out they were a little bit more based on the business than there was actual friend. Like I still talk to people who sold books and who are like, fuck, my brother's a DSM. So there's still like, there's no bad blood at all, but there is like a line that you're past and you're like, oh, okay. Like this is just like any other company, right? There's good things, there's some bad things relatively. And
some manipulation techniques that you ask, like, is this just a management style, or is this like actually manipulating like young people,
Right. Yeah. I understand. Yeah.
And not everyone operates that way, every org is different. But like there were just some things that like were like how things were run that I was just like, I can't feel good about this, and like,
and I've brought this up before on the show, but there's like, they preach so much about the buying atmosphere. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about what they teach you is like really genuinely like to do good, like not and to do well to the customer, both like you have to give them the option to say no and then mean it. People who have a fake buying atmosphere were like, oh, it's okay if you don't buy, but internally you don't believe that. The dollar signs come out of your eyes and you can see it and the customer can see it and it's not good and you're not going to sell it.
Right.
But when you're genuinely like not caring, not only does it come off as confident because it is, but it relieves that pressure from both of you and then that allows you to do well. That is not the same thing when they go and tell you to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a hard sell when they're like trying to get you to come back for multiple summers. Like, it is not a buying atmosphere. It's very manipulative, but on that buying atmosphere too, and like being able to really give someone the option of buying in a non-pressure situation, like it's because we're knocking on so many doors and we're trusting in the law of averages that the more doors that I knock on subsequently by the law of averages, the more yeses I'm going to hear. The more no's I hear, the more yeses I'm going to hear. In fact, we're having a boy, but if we were having a girl, I was going to name her Eloy. LOA is like the extended version of the acronym LOA for law of averages. Like that's how moved I've been, like lifelong pivot. I've always been a resilient gal, but like really trusting that if I keep facing adversity, like given that I've, studied the script or like done due diligence, like if law of averages, basically like seeing that in action, and having that resilience and stuff has moved me so much that I came up with the name LOA, and I think it's so clever and classy sounding. It's like, and my grandma's name is Eleanor, so LOA is like a little bit like more, anyway, cute, right?
Exactly right. And you just said it right there. That was exactly what you just said. I think is one of the most important bits of wisdom that you started a lot of really good stuff on the show, but I think from a standpoint of like something that you've taken away that's really important is just that, because it's not just a law of averages. The reps are needed for you to like for the first 3 weeks, especially. And this is not just in the book field. I mean, if you're starting a new business, if you're starting a new job, if you're starting a new habit, right? You decided to ride a bike every day for whatever the hell you're doing, you gotta put in the numbers right away, because you're gonna learn the reps, right? You're gonna learn the yes and the no. You're gonna learn some things. The first 3 weeks you're getting told so many times, so you gotta commit to getting those numbers. So the first chunk you're gonna fail a lot more than you would normally will, and just use it to learn. But then once you've put in that due diligence, like you said, then the next part is you've honed in the skills, you sharpened it up because you failed so many times that now it starts really working in your favor, because not only are you still putting the same amount of numbers or work in, right? You're knocking on that many doors, but now you're better at it. And so then all of a sudden, maybe before you were closing 1 out of 30, but now you start closing 3 out of 30. And if you just keep honing that in, eventually, that's how people sell a lot of books, is they just figure that out right away. They just figured it out quicker because, but nothing's gonna take away from the work. You got to put in the work. It's not like you can go sell 10 demos and then pretend like you're good at it now. You got to go put in that work, and you got to eat shit for a little while. The best way that they ever said it, and this is the case in anything in life, is before you can be good, you got to be bad. Before you can bad, you got to suck. And just so the trick is enjoy the suck. There's a quote.
Enjoy the suck. Yeah.
Enjoy the suck. Right.
And it was harder at times, like after being held at gunpoint, like, and I wasn't held at gunpoint. Basically, I walked up to a door and the guy was like, did you see the sign? Like, no soliciting, keep out, trespassing. Like, we just disregard those signs, And so, like, getting up to the front door and, like, him opening the door and, like, just having a shotgun pointed at my face and, like, back away. It's like, And I had been sent to that house, too, by, like, his mother-in-law or something a few houses down. But he'll definitely buy, like, don't worry about those signs or nothing. So I, like, ran up there with confidence, ran up to the door. And anyway, so, like, being fully shook and having to, like, and I called my manager, I called the home office. I was like, I mean, I had, they don't like to coin this term because once you've heard it, you, like, understand what it means, but door fright. So, like, after having a really traumatic situation like that, and I mean, he was really aggressive. He, like, pointed at me and was like, and, like, I tried to, like, answerize behind the next door, to do that, and I could not get out. And so I just drove into people's driveways for, like, an hour before I got my phone out of the back of the car and, like, called my manager, who obviously didn't have his phone on, called Melanie in the home office, called, Rao. And it was just like, this has happened before, Naomi, you're fine. Like, and the thing that was like a turning point to me too was it wasn't take the rest of the day, breathe about it, get your wits back about you, whatever. It was like dance alive behind the next door, which in hindsight is fucked,
Yes.
like, yeah. And so I didn't come home till 9:30 or so. I got my last knock in after 9:30 by knocking on what was clearly an abandoned house, just like to say that I was still within, my times were still 7:30 to 9:30, whatever. And I went home, and this other, like, kind of toxic environment, like toxic situation. It's ironic that in the HQs you never want to talk about negative stuff, because that would be like, and if you have to, you puke up. You tell
Right.
your upline. You don't ever tell, like, the people in your house or whatever when something negative has happened. So here I am, like, having been held, been pointed a fucking shotgun at, and, like, it being, like, kind of dismissed by certain higher ups, and then, like, telling my manager and him being like, because he was an OL at the time, and he's like, well, I've got to get all of these, stats in and stuff, and then at the end of the night I can talk to you. And I'm like, it's important. And he never called me back that night, because I mean, they're working until midnight and getting up at 6 a.m. The OLs are, because they're, like, doing all this extra work and, like, getting everybody's stats in every night. And so, like, I just felt like I couldn't tell my roommates. I tried to puke up and it wasn't reciprocated. And so the next morning when I had to go sell, like, in the most fucked up part about it is, like, in my head, I'm like, things that you have to overcome. Like, no, in hindsight, the reality is, like, that was a fight or flight, really scary situation. And I was having some, like, adrenaline whiplash from it. And I, like, probably should have taken a day or, like, had some sort of, like, therapy conversation or something, instead of just, like, you have to be strong enough to, like, compartmentalize this scary thing that happened to you and just keep knocking, or you're a shitty book girl, And, like, because no one talks about it, I didn't realize until I talked about it at Sizzler that, like, so many other book kids had been, like, had guns pulled on them, Like, this was not a just happened to me thing, but because we're encouraged not to talk about bad stuff, like, I felt very alone in that. And so This was like one of the ugly, things that happened. But
Yeah, that's and man, this has come up quite a bit on the show where it's like sometimes negative stuff needs to come out, man. Like you need it, especially like okay, so whatever during the summer. I'm not gonna agree that that's okay, but fuck it. Sure, for the summer, we're just gonna keep it chill and keep it positive. But at the end of the summer, you should have a person, and we talked about Heather Dutton.
yeah, there needs
Talked
to be
about
some
this,
sort of
like
like
a psychologist,
HR like decompression besides just get
something.
really drunk and cash in your big check,
Yeah,
Like
it's not pos. That's talk about not positive. Is that reaction to an extreme situation like that for people? You got it. You got to be able to like unload that. And you're fucking 19. You know what I mean? That's never happened to you before, and you came out here for this crazy experience, and you got it right. You got, but with that, some highs come those lows, and man, you got to be able to talk about. And
yeah,
also the
and the other
highs.
scary part was that I had pre-approach on that house. I knew his name. I had the mother-in-law's name. So it's like, that was an ideal scenario going to a door, right? Besides a couple of signs. So then knocking on strange doors where I didn't have names or pre-approach or
Oh,
know there were kids or whatever, that was like way scarier. Like if that happened at a door that I thought I knew, then like what's behind this mystery door? But yeah, the depths, the highs, the lows, the all of it. I just wish that, and I get why there's not more transparency with neg situations, but like there needs to be like code red, like we can talk about code reds or something.
yeah,
Like
and categorize them like
yeah,
hey, this could happen to you. If this
like
happens to you, we need
safety
to know
should be
about
talked
this.
about.
Yeah. And it's not that it's not safe, like, right? Because ultimately, like, if kids were getting shot off porches, they can't keep that on the wraps. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Right. That
we
was the
would know
only
about it.
summer that I got like pulled a gun on me personally out of 3 summers. So, or 2.5, what do you want to call it? Um, but I mean, I did hear of it happening to others, but I only heard of like one person actually being physically assaulted. So like of the thousands of book kids that I knew. So it's like
Yeah.
the actual ratio of violence happening was low. There was a lot of yelling, obviously a lot of aggressive rejection, verbal abuse, that sort of thing. But as far as like I never heard of anyone getting shot or um,
Yeah.
only one person being like manhandled or whatever. So like it's relatively safe. It is. But you can't tell a first year who just got a gun pointed at her like, oh, statistically you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm not thinking statistics like at that moment. I'm thinking like I'm shaking and freaking out and no one's hearing me. You know.
Right. And statistically, law of averages, that's the wrong kind of pony. You know what I'm saying? Like it's at some point, somewhere, somehow, like it's gonna get a gun pull on you, and it could get aggressive, and like it's wild. Statistic. You think about this. There's people who are like serial killers, right? So of all the book kids that are selling all over the country, somebody had to have knocked on somebody's door that
Oh
was
yeah.
like a
Yeah.
murderer. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that's happened.
Right.
But it's part of the life. It's part of the job. And
I met a pre-murderer, so there's that.
yeah, you met a guy who was gonna commit murder. By the
Right.
way, we found that article.
You did.
Yeah, it's on the comments. Yeah.
Where are the
I
comments?
can share the name here. I got it. I got you.
So y'all
It's
found the family in Panola County that I'm talking about.
yeah, it was the Jacobs
Wow.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found him. We found him. We got him. We got him.
Wow.
I got
Send
it
me the
right
link.
here. Yeah.
That's so wild.
Yeah, it's in the comments if you guys are watching. A 16-year-old facing 2 murder charges has been released from Memphis Hospital and transported to David M. Bryan Justice Complex. Matthew Ryan Jacobs was charged with shooting the death of his stepmother and father last week.
Dylan, are you hearing this? Sorry, yelling at my husband.
No, it's
Because
okay.
I never looked it up. I would like just like again, I haven't talked about this story in so long. But
Here, let's see if I can try to share it on the screen. Let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on a sec. Here we go. It's wild. I got this. I can do it. Here we go. Boom. Here it is. I got an ad. Hang on.
yeah, so the Panolian is the Panola County
What is that noise? Sorry, my dog got
God,
loose
I
in
have
here.
chills right now.
This is crazy. Are you okay with us sharing this?
Yeah, I want to hear it, but
Okay, so I don't want to register now. How do I do the heck? What the heck?
you might have to
Weird.
pay to read the article.
No. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, golly. Oh, jeez. How do I? What the heck? How do I get out of this? No. I have it pulled up on my other screen, but I can't share it like that. Or maybe I can.
Read it to us. It doesn't look very long.
Hang on. Let me share. Yeah, it's not very. But let me share window. Here we go. Right here. Can you see that? And put this on this. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Dang, this is crazy. All right, so this is it. Services held Tuesday for Senatobia for stepmother Crystal Jacobs. Mrs. Jacobs was 30. Tommy Jacobs was 35. Authorities alleged he gunned down his parents on their home just after 4 a.m. June 30th, according to Panola County Sheriff Otis Griffin.
Yeah, so June 30th. So I had been selling for a month and a half at that point because I had already left the county to sell elsewhere. And then, like, I didn't find out until, like, early August when I went back. Yeah. Oh, God.
Shooting occurred at 2970 Paul White Road, east of Como. Mrs. Jacobs was pronounced dead at the residence. After authorities arrived at the scene, Tommy Jacobs was airlifted to the regional medical center, where he died later that day. They had been shot in the bedroom, according to Griffin. Matthew Jacobs was initially detained by the authorities after showing up at a North Oak Regional Medical Center in Senatobia with a gunshot wound to the hand, according to Griffin. He was transported to the medical center in Memphis, according to a deputy from Panola County. They didn't have to extradite him back to Mississippi because he remained in the department's custody. He was never out of custody. I'm trying to skip him here. The shooting remains under investigation as authorities are working to determine what happened. Griffin reported that the teen told authorities that he was shot in the hand by his father, but evidence at the crime scene does not substantiate that claim. Griffin said that disagreement had been with the teen and his parents apparently stemmed from a discipline problem. I'll say maybe he was kind of misbehaving. It sounds like his stepmom tried to make him mind and do the right thing. Quote.
Dude, on that note, you know what I just remembered too? He did not want to come out of his room for the demo, like to see the books. And she like made him. She was like, no, you're going to be nice to this guest and you're going to come out here and you're going to see this nice lady's books. And like, that's when he was like burning his hand like a weirdo. Like,
fuck.
And it just said in the article that she made him mind. Like, wow.
Yeah, here's a non-ad version of it if people want to read through. But the link is in the comments if you guys want to read. But here it is, right there. Boom, Ryan Jacobs. Wonder
wow, where he's at now. This is wild.
Jesus, you sold to these Wow, he was 16, facing 2 murder charges. I wonder. There's probably public record of what happened. We can probably find it, and I'll send it to you if we find it. That's bananas, yo, bananas. And that's not even the craziest story.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I've still got ponytails, but that's wild.
Damn.
I guess that could be up there, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, holy shit. Wait, so is it time for the ponytails? Is that what you're telling me?
Is it ponytail time?
We can. It's up to you. It's your call.
Should I put my hair in a ponytail?
So, I mean, it's up to you. If you got more third summer stories, we can go into those. But if you got ponytails.
No. Let's roll into funny or wild. I don't know. Yeah.
Wild stories, wild pony stories. All right, so here we go. So now that we're going to ponytails, again, a little bit from our friends over at EnLight.Energy. So a couple, by the way, all of our sponsors are book people or former book people that are kicking ass individually. So not all of them work for sister companies. Some of them work for like this solar company right here. So Julio, you know Nick Taverdi, right? The guy that hosts every once in a while. Yeah, so he works for EnLight, and they were the
Julio Hernandez.
Yeah, do you know Julio?
Yeah. He was a DSM my first summer. He came and followed me in Mississippi. So.
No way. Julio's the shit, man.
Yeah, he's great.
I love Julio. Julio's awesome. So if you guys are looking for something to do, real estate and life insurance isn't really, and finances isn't really your thing. Well, hell, maybe solar is. And I tell you what, Nick, Alex, a bunch of other folks working for him are crushing it in the business, and it is worth it. I work part-time with them, and I would knock every once in a while in Gainesville. So I'm in Gainesville all the time, or I was in Gainesville all the time back in the summer. And so they're crushing it out there. So Naomi, if you or somebody that you know, friends of yours that are looking to kind of make a career change or do something maybe even part-time that they want to make a little money, boom, let us know. They're hiring over at EnLight.Energy, and they are crushing. It's a cool company to be a part of, and they're growing exponentially. So make sure you guys reach out to us for sure. So now that we have said that, it is time for the wildest of the wild pony stories, which is crazy that the 16-year-old murderer isn't in the top,
yeah.
But so there's a sister story that's coming that's salacious, right?
Yeah, and I also like that I know that my stories are wild, but like, you know, we didn't just make up that, like, you know, media write up, like
No.
It's validating, because sometimes it's like, did this shit happen to me? Yes, it did. They just found the article, you know, like I dug that memory out of like some dark, you know, place, and there it is. But anyway, it's just wild. But since we mentioned Julio Hernandez, let me tell you. So, my first GRS won. So that's the Great Recruiter Seminar. So after your first summer, or after you have sold some books or whatever, if you like plan to recruit, then you go to the Great Recruiter Seminar. The first one is in January. Yeah, so everybody gets together, whatever. So this was at the Renaissance Hotel in Nashville, and we were like, you know, in seminars all day long, and then we were partying at nighttime, because you're only there for like 3 days or whatever. So it's like, you know, like work by day, party by night. Well, Julio had been dating this gal Valerie for like 4 or 5 years or so, a long time. They were like both like book gods back in the day, and like legends.
He still is. He's a legend.
Yeah, so he and Valerie were both legends, both beautiful Hispanic people, and he had rented out the entire, like, I think it was the roof of this club, and like everybody was dressed in like, you know, all like black tire or black tire, everyone was in black tires, black tie affair like outfits, and just like your best, you know, your best outfit. And so he had rented it out and whatever. But the thing was, it like after midnight, and we didn't know this, but after midnight, the venue became 21 and up. So we had, and I think I was 19 at the time. Yeah, I was 19. We had pre-gamed really hard, drinking in the hotel room, and then we walked to this club, and I was the last in line with all these other 19-year-olds. And so they all got in, and the bouncer knew that we were all with Julio's group, and that he was like a high roller. I mean, he spent like, I don't know how many grand to like rent out the top of this place or whatever. And anyway, so I was the last person in all of our group, and the bouncer takes my ID, and he goes, "You're not 21?" And I said no, and I had a fake at the time, but I wanted to use my real ID because like I didn't know if Julio would like, you know, why do you have a wristband or something, like knowing I was 19.
He's very like a straight, like very by the rules. He's very like
right.
very
yeah. So
integrated
out of
person.
respect, out of respect for their event, I used my real ID, and he's like, "Oh, you're under 21?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And it's midnight." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "The venue's now 21 and up." And I'm like, "All of those are my friends. We just walked here." He's like, "Sorry, can't help you." And I'm like, "Dude, this is crazy." And they're all like, "Naomi, why aren't you coming?" And I'm like, he won't let me in. And like, it, you know, and so I tried to sweet talk him, tried to this, tried to that. He was like, "Step to the side." I was like, can someone get Julio? Like, no one's answering their phones. I was like, "I'm stuck out here." I was like, I didn't want to walk through Nashville at midnight to go back to the hotel, or I didn't want to go to another club by myself. So I was like kind of a stuck duck, you know. I was probably about 4 or 5 shots in. So, you know, and I'm like trying to finagle my way with this guy, and he's not having it. So finally, this other bouncer walks out, and I explained to him the situation, and he's like, "All right, sugar." He's like, "Give me a kiss, and I'll get you in." And so I did. I kissed him like really quickly, whatever. Huge guy. And then right then he got called elsewhere. Like there was like a fight or something. So I was like, "Damn it, he just got a free kiss and I didn't get in." So then Richard Shaw was like, "All right, gnomes." Like he like looked around the back alley and there was no back way in. So he's like, "Here's what we're gonna do." He's like, "I'm gonna get I forget who it was. He's like, I'm gonna get this other person to distract the bouncer, and you can just step over this, like, this gating or whatever, this like metal railing. This was kind of led to a patio and then to the venue. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, this is, last case scenario, whatever. So homeboy is distracting him. Richard's on the other side of this little like metal gate. I step one leg over. As I'm stepping the other leg over, we realize that it's not attached to anything. It's just this metal like gate on like security gate on concrete, and it goes
oh shit!
Like metal against concrete until it's like the music stopped and everyone looks at me, and that bouncer yanked me up like a rag doll, freaking like sat me down by the shoulders on the curb, called the cops on me, put my hands in like 4 zip ties so tight behind my back that like it was like cutting off the circulation. And I get put into the back of the cop car. They're like, have you been drinking? And I was like, do you want me to be honest? and he was like, I can smell it on your breath. He's like, you're definitely, you're 19, whatever. And I told him, I was like, I'm a good girl. I'm here with, all of my friends. I explained to him, like, that's one thing, even when I'm blackout drunk, I can speak very acutely, like articulately. So like, it was convincing him that I wasn't as drunk as I was. Like in the back of his cop car, like still out front, like the bouncer's still staring me down. And so I explained to him, everybody else got in but me. Like, I didn't want to walk back, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, oh, I just put my finger on it. You remind me of my daughter. And I was like, I bet she's a real good girl, too. Like, so I have this cop convinced to, like, let me out. He's like, all right, well, I ain't going to take you downtown, but you can't go in there or whatever. And I was like, all right, thank you. So he goes to let me out. He cuts my zip ties off. And then somebody came out and was like, nope, owner's pressing charges. Take her downtown. So then he puts me in handcuffs, puts me back into the car. And then Julio runs downstairs to the cop car with the other owner. And they let me go. And I had to walk back to the hotel alone. But, like, Damn. It was just a whirlwind, like 4 times. Like, yeah.
Julio with the cape just showed up.
Yeah, right?
That's the kind of guy you want to work for. So there you go.
Yeah, that was the first time that I was in the back of a cop car, but like didn't go downtown.
Sounds like there was a time you were in the back of a cop car and went downtown.
No, never been down. I've been in handcuffs a few times, but never arrested.
I can't imagine, as a brown man in this country, growing up in Nebraska, I can't imagine like that. I couldn't get away with that. But luckily, Julio was there to save the day.
Yeah, and I just remember Julio and them being like, do you know how much money I've spent here tonight? And she's with us. Like, I was like, yeah, you get him.
Yeah, tell him, Julio.
Yeah, you tell him.
Julio's the coolest person.
And he was like, don't be sassy. Like, said something to me like that. Like you pipe down.
Gotta love Julio. He's great, man. He's a shit. All right, I think it's time for the Sizzler story.
Okay. Okay, this one's wild, and trigger warning, it involves an illicit substance.
Oh no, we've never talked about illicit substances before.
So it was my first.
For your sake, again, it's your discretion. So
I wasn't involved with doing it, so I won't drop the names of who was. How about that?
Yeah, okay. That's better. That's better.
Yeah. So we're in Mexico. We're in Cancun. They would at Sizzler, and they would like bus us to like from the resort to the like areas like for Coco Bongo and Senor Frogs and whatever. But then it was up to you to get a ride back to the resort because like the buses weren't driving all the students back, and the students were coming back at different times. Some people saw the sun come up, from the party spots. But anyway, so we loaded into a couple of cabs. I was the only one who spoke a lick of Spanish, and it was very minimal. So as we're getting into the cabs, one of our buddies in the other cab was sick. And so they were just going to head straight back to we were both going to head straight back to the resort. But the other friend with our sick friend was like, oh, Naomi, since I'm going to take him back because he's in my room, can you ask the cab driver for some white girl? And I'm like, what? Like, just asking for it? Like, I didn't know how much. I didn't know how much it cost. I didn't know the exchange rate. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know the appropriate way to ask for it, anything. And he's like, yeah, just, and here I am, like, rising to every challenge. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get him some white girl. Like, not even sure. Like, they could have sold me salt, like, honestly. And anyway, so we get into the car. Their cab takes off. And he's like, where to first? I'm like, well, we're going to the Grand Oasis, pero me gustan la chica blanca. ¿Tú tienes? And he turns around and he looks at me and I'm like, la gringa blanca, like la chica blanca. I'm just trying to say like white girl or whatever. And then I'm like, la cocina, and I realized that's kitchen, like not la cocaina. Anyway, so he's like nodding, like yeah, and he's like money, and I'm like, oh shit, like we didn't get money from him. I have no idea how much he wants or like, how much it costs or whatever. So I just handed him like I think like $60 in U.S. or not U.S. and $60 in Spanish.
Mexican pesos.
Yeah, Mexican pesos, whatever. And so here's where it gets wonky. He drives off of the main because it's one main stretch of highway that's paved from the touristy area to the resort. Well, like as soon as you turn off of that paved road, you're on like dirt road, puddles, that sort of thing. So he drives us to this like Pueblo compound and like clay walled scenario, like straight out of Encanto, and we pull up and we pull up into and it's like a quad. Like we pulled up into this like square of buildings that are like 2-story or like Pueblo, style housing. And he gets out and knocks and he's like, stay. And we're like, yeah, we're not going anywhere. Like, anyway, so the three of us are in the back of the car. He goes and knocks on the door, and then a light comes on upstairs, and then this really old Mexican lady in a see-through silk nightie answers the door, and his headlights are still on, and about this time, a rooster and a street dog are like fighting to the death in the headlights, and we're starting to just like freak out, like we're in the wrong place, man. Like there's like we realize that ahead of us is like this gated area, like we're at the front of the fucking like gang, like
cartel shit.
Like we want to get out of here. Like we're rooting for the turkey or like the rooster, and like like shit's going down. And then she rings this like doorbell thing, but it goes up and then across the road and like dinged a bell in the second story of the building on the left. And then somebody turns the light on up there. Like she like pulled a drawstring and it like went up and over. And like I wish that they had cans on the end of it. Like if they, we need white girl, but they didn't. So then someone came downstairs and like very angrily like threw the bag at the cab driver, and he got back in and he handed me like the smallest amount I've ever seen, and then made us pay more for it. He was like, this is good stuff, so we had to like give him more money. And so and he like wanted us to try it, but like none of us wanted to try it. We're just like, we believe you, bro. Like no turning back now. Like we're in it, So
this is the Colombian stuff.
Yeah, so we get back to the resort, and here I am thinking like, I've done it, yay. So we get back to the resort, we go back to the hotel or to the room of the friend that was sick and the friend that wanted the stuff, and they lined it all up, and we're like, oh, did y'all want some finder see? And we're like, no, I'm good. Like I saw where this shit came from. I don't want anything to do with it. Like, and like that shit has bad juju. Like a street dog died in the making of this cocaine. But anyways, like
there's a soundbite right there again. A street dog died in the making of this cocaine.
Yeah. So at least in the handoff. But
oh my god, this is wild.
So the sick friend was still in the bathroom, And the friend who I had bought it for, like, lined it up and he like hit a line of it and he was like, "Oh, that was some good shit." He was like, "Do you know where he got it? Like, could we go back for more?" And I was like,
Jesus.
"Absolutely not. Like, 0% chance are we going back to that same place for sure." And it's like 5 o'clock in the morning at this point. And then here's the funniest part. We can hear from the bathroom the guy that was sick. He was like, hey, I threw in. Line me up. And the funniest thing is,
God.
they lined up a thing of salt. They had like some individual salt packets, and they literally, like, there was a line of cocaine and then a line of salt. And this particular person that was sick in the bathroom he was like a 5-summer book man. He was known for being a badass and like always upping the ante. He came out and the other dude was like, "Yeah, there's your line, bro." So he rails it and he looks at us and he's like, "What was that?" And he goes, "Salt." And he was like, "Hell yeah." And then he did the rest of it. Like, knowingly did the rest of it. Like, it was like, oh my God, this guy.
Sizzler's a wild place.
Yeah. So
Shit.
I know this is live. Maybe we'll have to cut all that out. I was not involved except for in the acquisition, which I regret.
This is an uncensored podcast for a reason, man. We don't give a fuck. That's zero story to tell. I don't give a shit. For all I know, you were bullshitting the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
For all we know, we're listed as a comedy stand-up or a comedy podcast, so this is entirely satirical for any intents and purposes.
Yeah, if I ever get elected for public office, I'm fucked.
Nah, you can own it. I feel like it'd be greater if you own it. Think about it. Wouldn't you vote for a president that's like, yeah, I did cocaine in college?
I didn't do it. I acquired it.
I know. You know what I'm saying? I bought cocaine in Mexico in college. Like, fuck it. What are you gonna do? Like, that guy's honest. I don't give a shit what he did. Like, he's 50 now. Like, who gives a fuck? Right? Like, who you were 10 years ago isn't who you are now. You know, and shit. There's college kids tonight on a Thursday doing crazier shit. So yeah. It doesn't define who you are. It's just an experience to have it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
okay,
hilarious.
Another ponytail though. Okay, I almost got in trouble with the cops in Mississippi. Let me start from the top. So there was my names were really clicking in Panola County, but I really wanted to get this principal. Like, he was like the cool guy. His wife was a teacher. Like, everybody told me, "Oh, you've got to meet Mr. Matthews," yada yada yada. Well, and I was like just waiting for the day because I didn't want to blatantly be like, "Where does he live?" Like, I'm gonna go find him, you know. So I'm knocking on doors in this neighborhood, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this teacher bought, but Mr. Matthews hasn't bought yet." And she points to like 2 houses down, and I'm like, "Is that Mr. Matthews, the principal's house? I just haven't met him yet." Like, yay, I'm gonna go meet him and get his endorsement, whatever. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's super nice, so is his wife, whatever. Like, you've got to get his name." And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." She goes, "I'll tell you what, if Mr. Matthews buys it, or if he gives his seal of approval, I'll buy the bag. Or like, I'll buy everything for my kid or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm headed to Mr. Matthews' house." Right?
Hell yeah.
So I pull up in the yard and there's like some people like out front, like yelling, what was it? Boots, mittens, socks. I can't remember. It was one of those. Let's pick one for the story. Boots, boots, and they're like yelling, and the Mr. Matthews, assumedly his wife, was like hysterically crying, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Naomi," and he's like, "I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. My wife's cat's missing," and I was like, "Oh no, what does it look like?" "Oh, well, it's called Boots because it's got, it's all black tuxedo cat with 4 white paws," and I'm like, "Okay." And I do a little bit of my intro. I know it's not the time right now to demo. So I'm like, and this is going to be like my power name of all power names. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go meet with some of the other families in the neighborhood and I'll come back to you guys. But like, let me help you look too. I'll keep an eye out for Boots. And he's like, "Thank you." It's like my wife's like, twin soul of an animal, like basically telling me they have this like really crazy connection. And she's like hella distraught. And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure, for sure." So I keep knocking on doors, but I'm still thinking like, strategically, should I go back tonight or like, should I come back another day? And then like, I've got to get his to get the other lady and like yada yada. So I've worked a couple of streets. They're in kind of a, upper middle class neighborhood. I've worked a couple of streets now. Lo and behold, and mind you, I'm deathly allergic to cats. So allergic to cats. Well, I'm like 2 streets down, and guess who I see in the middle of the road?
Fucking
Boots. Boots. I see Boots, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the hero. I'm gonna get Mr. like Jacobs on board, or Mr. Matthews, whatever his name was. And so I get, but I'm like, how can I can't touch the cat, right? Like that'll make me sick. So I got a like raincoat out of the trunk of my car, like a poncho, and I like had to chase this cat a little bit to pick it up with the plastic, and I like put it into my front seat, and I was like, oh, it could just I have to have the windows down because I can't be in an enclosed space with it, but it's just gonna jump out. So I put the seatbelt around it. So it's in a poncho and the seatbelt's around it, and I head down the street to go back to Mr. Matthews and tell him I found his cat, and I get pulled over, and the cop walks to the passenger side window, and he looks in, and me and Boots are just like, hey, and he goes, just as I presumed, we've had reports of a cat burglar from out of state.
Oh no!
And I was like, no, this is Mr. Jacobs' cat, Mr. Matthews' cat. And he was like, how can you prove it? And I'm like, well, maybe you could look on its collar, and like I'm sure it would say the name. And he was like, well, you do it. Like he was like suspicious, and I'm like, I'm allergic to cats. And he's like, funny, it sounds like something a cat burglar would say. And like the cat, yeah, like it's like me trying to convince him I'm not a cat burglar. But the cat is suspiciously wrapped up in a plastic bag and buckled in. Like it is very suspect. And I'm like, look, like we're only 2 blocks away. We could just bring the cat back, and like all of this will be settled. And he's like, all right, then let's see it. I'll follow you there. And everybody knows each other in Mississippi, so he follows me to the house, and I run up to the door with that cat. And this is the chillest fucking cat. And I'm like, look who and I ring the doorbell, and Miss Matthews answers the door, still crying. And I'm like, hey, Miss Matthews, cheer up, look who I found. And she goes, that's not Boots.
Oh, fuck. Who the hell is it? What kind of cat is this? I had
to drive mystery cat back to where I found it and just put it back in the yard. Like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
And then they didn't buy.
Yeah, I don't think I ever went back.
Oh no.
I'm sure I did, but like they were also super busy. Like they were never home, but anyway.
Oh man. That's typically the story that you hear from book kids that is like, and then they bought, but they didn't buy.
No. Yeah, I wish there was a pony. Yeah, that was the cat.
That would have been so epic. It's like it was a cat, and then they bought, and then the whole school district bought or whatever. No, it was the wrong cat. Damn, dude, that is bananas. These are great.
Yeah,
these are great.
Thank you, cat burglar.
Damn,
like got red-handed.
Wow. Did we make it through the whole list, or do we still have one more?
I got one more.
All right, this is the one.
This one isn't really that impressive though. So we'll end on a soft note, but it's funny. So Dan Moore, as you know, or maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but so he was the president when I sold, but he had what?
I think isn't he still the president?
Oh, he might be. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm out of the loop, but yeah. So he had this like uncanny ability to like no, I think there was like 2,000 or more my first year selling, and yet somehow he knew my name and like that I went to UF and what I studied. Like dude, his brain is like a Rolodex, of like everyone,
Yes.
which is really wild. Like his like pneumatic device or whatever he uses. But anyway, so it was GRS1 and me and two other book kids were in the elevator. Now they had we were going downstairs to go to the Freddy's. So we were all dressed up, super nice, but they had just smoked a blunt on the roof of the hotel, and it smelled like we had just hotboxed the whole like elevator. And like I'm laughing really hard about it because I'm allergic to weed, so I'm starting to sneeze. And I also think it's hilarious that like, oh, you guys are gonna go to the Freddy's like that, like, well, at like the 59th floor, Dan and Maria get on the elevator with
Oh
us.
shit.
So we had to ride down like 59 floors, and he's like, Naomi, and then he said the other two names, like Josh, Cooper, and it's like, like how do I say it wasn't me, Dan? Like it wasn't me.
No.
And then when we all got off, he like turned around and like just made eye contact with each of us, like I am like your like grandmother Willow, and I want you to make good decisions, kind of like conveyance of emotion just with a look in the eyes. And I just like the rest of the night I avoided him, but I wanted to write him a letter and be like, I wasn't part of this like hooligan scenario, or like, but I didn't, obviously. But
Fuck, that's a
I was
scary
like
situation.
literally guilty by association.
But honestly, you worked for college kids for so long, he's probably just like, fuck it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, who gives a shit at this point? Like,
Yeah.
how many times has that happened that Dan Moore knows? He's like, he probably knows it's happening. It's like, I don't need to know. It's better if I don't know, but you can just assume. I work with 3,000 college kids every summer. Like, shit's gonna happen, especially now that it's legal in some states. You know what I mean? Like, those kids that come from Boulder, Colorado, they're not gonna suddenly be like, hey, no, guys, no, not in the summer. Come on now, not in GRS. Like, they fucking know.
Not inside the hotel, like.
Fuck. La Chica Blanca, baby. That's what it is. It's if you get that at Sizzler, you get to marry Jane at GRS. That's how it works. That's how it works. Damn, dude, this was insane. This was insane. This is by far one of the craziest episodes with the craziest stories. It's been a while since we had like a just full of stories episode, which is good. It's a good like refresher. Because we need that. So sometimes it's just all stories, sometimes it's like motivational moments, right? Sometimes it's like really profound conversations, but it's a good mix, and we needed this. This is let's recap. If you made it this far, thank you for listening this far. We had kind of dead lady on your birthday for your first day and first door. We had murderer. We had goat biting your ass cheek and you getting free stitches for it. We had cocaine at Sizzler. We had a donkey schlong of a manager guy whose pants ripped in front of Mark Rouse kids at Sizzler. We had like a cat that was a missing cat that wasn't a missing cat. I mean, goddamn, we had a whole slew. And now we've arrived. How was your experience on the Ponytails podcast?
This has been so much fun.
Hell yeah. There's a soundbite right there. We're going to keep that and use it in a trailer somewhere. We're going to be like, that's what we need. All right. Well, damn. Naomi, you are the shit. I am so happy to have met you. I'm so happy to have cheers with you. Your baby's due when?
August 28th.
August 28th. And if you are in the Florida area and needed a wedding planned or an event planned as well, or just a wedding?
Yes, I have venues all over. So
great. Venues and weddings planning. Let us know. They can reach you on Instagram. How do they find you? How do people find you?
All of my handles are it's MC Gnomes because I'm an MC. So it's all ITS_MC_NOMES. It's MC Gnomes.
It's MC Gnomes, and we're gonna find you on Instagram. We're gonna follow you on the Ponytails podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you guys subscribe. It's on the screen right now. ITS_NC_NOMES. MC. Okay, we'll get that fixed. And here we go. MC as in Mary as in Mary Jane.
Master of ceremonies.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Marrier
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
guns. Just kidding.
Gotta love it. This is the Ponytails podcast, and that's how we do it. So, guys, thank you so much. Make sure you guys subscribe, share the episode, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating on Spotify. Make sure you guys follow along. We're on Instagram, we're all over the place. We have been with Naomi James Langley, as you might have known her back in the book days, episode 107. My name is Andres Gamboa. Naomi, thank you so much for being with us. God bless everybody. Good night. We'll see you guys on Sunday. For the next episode, we're live on Thursdays at 7 Central and Sundays at 4 Central. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.